All right, sports fans, welcome out to another episode of the Gridiron 64 podcast. This is the breakdown of episode number 18. So we're getting up there on the gridiron. We're going to break down the football schedule on the Gridiron 64 round number 5. There were some good games. We have 20 that we previewed this past week. And so today we're going to break those games down. And I've got my crew in full effect this evening. I've got the coach, Steve Cantu. Coach, how you doing?
Hey, I'm blessed, brother. I'm happy to be here.
All right. And then, of course, I got the Z-Man, Johnny Zavala. Z-Man, how you doing?
Doing good, doing good, doing good.
And then I've got Big T, Tony Pena. How you doing, Big T?
Doing good, man. Ready to get it.
All right. And so, like I said, man, we're coming into the end of the 2021 football season. We've got one final game left. It'll be played at AT&T Stadium, Jerry's World up in Dallas. I think the games start midweek in a couple of days here. And there's some good championship games. And of course, we'll be back next Monday to preview those games as well. But, we make predictions. And so tonight we're going to break down the 20 games. And we'll start off with, if you guys are ready, we'll start off with the first game on the list. We had the Marlin Bulldogs going up against number 5, Hawley. I believe I said that right. Bearcats. The Bearcats take a close win, 19-12. Johnny, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on this game? I didn't know much about either one of these teams. I'm assuming they're like the smaller school.
Yeah, this is a 2A Division 2. No. This is
Division 1. It's Division 1, I think.
I think it is Division 1.
Division 1. Shiner and Refugio Division 2.
No,
yeah,
Shiner's
Division 1.
Division 1. Shiner's Division 1. So
yeah,
this
oh,
is
they're both Division 1. They're both Division 1.
Yeah, this is who Shiner's playing.
Yeah.
Okay. Any thoughts on that game, Z-Man? The Bearcats take a close win, 19-12. So it was a good competitive game.
It was. I had picking Hardly on this one. Just for the record, and I really didn't know much about either one of the teams, but I'm gonna give a little shout out to a guy by the name of Darian Gillet. He's a junior linebacker prospect. He had an interception, and he also we caught a ball for 12 yards and had 11 rushing yards for a touchdown. And one thing about these smaller schools, these kids go both ways. They don't come off the field. Your star running backs are playing safeties. Your quarterback's playing a corner and a safety. Your lineman's playing both sides of the fields. So a lot of these kids, they go the entire game. I mean, they're out there kickoff returns. This is tough for these kids. Because you're basically coming out with like 20 something players on the field, so you don't have much depth on the game. And I kind of saw this between the Shiner and Refugio game, and watching some of these games online, especially the Shiner and Timpson one. That's the one I saw, and you just see it back and forth. I mean, these guys are on the field the entire time.
Yeah, and Tony, I guess the upside to that is that both teams got to do it right. These smaller schools, it's not just one team doing it, playing a bigger school that's got, you basically, like Johnny said, you're basically about the same numbers. So, the other team has to do it as well. But, the point that Johnny made, they do this all season long, right? You got to do this from week 1 all the way if you make it to the championship game. I mean, you're going both ways, you're playing. So there's not a lot of room for rest. So these guys got to be in really good tip-top shape. You and I, we didn't talk about either one of these teams a lot on the gridiron. But do you have any thoughts on this game and the Bearcats taking that 19-12 win?
Yeah. Again, like to Johnny's point, neither team has the advantage here as far as the amount of players they got on the sideline. But when you look at the season that both of these two teams had, I mean, they pretty much ran over everyone they played, and then they come face each other and have a tight game. Man, it was close in the third. 12-13 in the third quarter, and really it was the fourth quarter that made the difference. But if just looking at the stats, I mean, we're talking about both teams just really playing small ball. There was a lot of passes completed, but for minimal yards on both teams. And then when you look at the rushing, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of yards on the ground by either team as well. I mean, you got some standouts, but it was mainly just a defensive game. If you look at the kind of points that these two teams racked up in the regular season, and they really put some points on the board. They lit the scoreboard up. But when like we talked about the last couple of weeks, when you get this deep into the playoffs, I mean, it's anyone's game. It's whoever wants it the most, and the games get tougher and tighter, this turned out to be a really really good game against two really good programs. But it's who can play to the end, and Howley played till the end, and they got that fourth quarter score, and that was what made the difference in the game.
Hey, yeah, it was, man. It looked like it was a really good game, a good competitive game between these small schools. And Steve, anything you want to add? Anything you got? Anything to add
Well,
on these two teams?
what I'm saying, these are the types of games that I enjoy checking up on and watching and seeing this deep. You know what I'm saying? I mean, a blowout is cool, right? You see some, they kind of jump at you, but you expect to see a tight game for the most part. You're tuning in this late in the season. These teams have made these long runs. You expect to see a tight game like this, but the Bulldogs had a great season. Like Tony said, their quarterback, a junior, his name is Woodson. He went 11 for 15 for 186 yards. And they had a running back, also a junior, Harris, went for 93 rushing yards. But like you said, like Tony said, these sound like first quarter stats or second quarter stats, but these are game stats. So, I get, both teams had defenses that really came to play. The Bulldogs, only scored there in the third quarter. They were shut out for 3 whole quarters. So, Hawley's defense played great, what I'm saying, and really shut down and put the clamps on them for the most part of this game. But, hats off to the Bulldogs and the season that they had to make this deep of a run. So I'm really happy for them.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see what happens. We'll see if the Bearcats can bring the title home. The next game on the GI64 schedule, we had the number 2 Shiner Comanches going up against the number 3 team, Timpson Bears. This was a good one. I kind of watched some of it on live stream. The Comanches take the one touchdown a win, 35-28. This was a good one. Before this, after Shiner beat Refugio, we kind of thought that, hey, they're just gonna stream right through. Now they're just basically gonna run through everybody else. But then I started to hear right after this Timpson team, they got a running back, and started looking in a little bit, and all of a sudden, as we get close to the game, I'm like, hey man, this is gonna be a good one, and it was. But Shiner does get the win. Steve, I'll start with you, man. Your thoughts on this game, man? This is a good one. We didn't know anything about Timpson, man, but that's a team out there.
Yeah, no, again, what I'm saying, nice, hard fought game. Really enjoyed checking the stats on this and watching. How as a Shiner needed that. What I'm saying, they needed to go up against it. They need to have a tough game. What I'm saying, hats off for them. That shows a lot of a lot of determination on those boys' part, and I'm excited to continue to watch them, man. Like I said, I feel a connection there with Shiner. Because I've watched them play for so many years, and I've really watched the Brooks brothers grow up literally on TV right in front of my eyes. So, this is one that I got a little asterisk near, and just keeping a close eye on them. So, really happy for those boys that they're moving forward, and hopefully, that kid will graduate with 3 rings, right? Am I right, Tony? If he got one this year, he's got 2 already.
Who's that? The Brooks brothers?
Yeah.
No, they lost.
One of them.
They lost his sophomore year. They lost to
Refugio.
and then they won it
Refugio
last
knocked
year.
him
So
out.
He's
Okay.
got one.
I don't know about his freshman year, but I know his sophomore year because it was Refugio won 2 years ago, Shiner won last year, and then
This would be
so
their
this
second.
this yeah.
This would be
So
their second.
but again I don't know as far back as when he was a freshman. I think Refugio was Division One back then.
Hmm.
I believe because I remember them playing Cisco at one point. I don't know if they jumped. Shiner was Division One and Refugio was Division Two, or it was the other way around because Refugio used to play against East Bernard and Cisco and them, but it was up until 2 years ago when Refugio won, and then last year Shiner beat them. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
Well,
still, man.
nonetheless, man, I'm looking forward to those guys making that, getting that last win, man, getting that W, man, and bringing that ring home. So, those are the teams that I'll watch the most. You know what I'm saying? That those Shiners and who else we got? Oh gosh, Quirrell's out, so Shiner. Well, that might be the only one that I'll be watching.
Tony.
yeah, Steve said it right. Shiner needed to have a game like this, a game that was close, because other than this game, they really didn't have a close game, especially in that region final game against Refugio. Really inflates your it really inflates your confidence, maybe too much. So playing in a semi, like this tight, really brings them back down to earth and lets them know that, there's teams out there that compete with that can compete with them. And I'm pretty sure they thought that about Refugio, but after beating a team like Refugio as bad as they did, and then coming into the semis and winning by a touchdown, it grounds them and lets them know, hey, we need to work hard because nothing's going to be handed to us. And like Steve said, those Brooks brothers that they have grown up on TV, and I remember watching them, and I didn't even know until we brought it up in the playoffs that was the same kids. I watched that show and I
Mhm.
remember them, but I didn't know it was the same kid until Steve had mentioned that. So I think it's pretty neat that we're watching these guys, and hearing the playing for the state championship title. And hopefully they could win, 16-0 and state. That would be an awesome way to end your high school career. So we'll see
Yeah,
what they could do, but they're gonna have their hands full next week for sure.
And Johnny. I'm being told. Yeah, I haven't confirmed it right, but Douglas, I think, if I'm saying this correctly, will graduate. Dalton will be back one more year. Is what
yeah,
I think. Is that correct? So, man,
yeah,
just imagine this. Dalton could probably get three. If they win this game against this up in a few days, and then they can make another run next year. We'll see what happens. But Johnny, your thoughts on this game? And this was a good one. You and I, we had talked about Pod Timpson. They're no joke. We really didn't know much about them. We were hyping up the Refugio and Shiner, and then they beat Refugio, and then all of a sudden that week we're like, wait a minute, we're starting to look at Timpson. This team, man, they might be able to take Shiner, and they almost did. Your thoughts?
yeah. I mean, I was seeing that all over these Texas Facebook pages and stuff like that. Like, oh, Timpson's gonna take this one. Timpson's gonna take
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And it was just all over. And I was all like, I don't know. But it was a lot of talking. And hey, this was a game for Timpson to win. They went to the end. I think at one time, well, most of the time they were down by 14. Then they'll get it down to 7, 14-7. I know at one time they were down by 14, and this Terry Busey, I think you say it, Bussey. I think it's Bussey. Terry Bussey. He plays quarterback, he plays safety, and he also plays as a kickoff returner. Yeah, when Shiner went up by 14, I thought the game was over. This is when the Brooks brothers started like doing I call it the Dallas Cowboys running down the clock, just rushing and rushing and rushing. And it just seemed like that's what they were doing. Shiner was finally got to a point where like the run attack was finally there. I mean, because Dalton struggled the entire game. He had a good game, but he didn't have that biggest, every
Like
explosive play like he did against Refugio.
Yeah, he killed
You know?
Refugio.
And so it was. I wanted to see a bust. I wanted to see him bust just because I saw it, live. So I'm like, I wanted to see it, but it just looked like Shiner was going to pull away. Then bam, Bussy or whatever his name is, return a kickoff return, the assuming kickoff return for 100 yards. And I was all like, oh, they're down by 7 again. You never know. You never know. And then they, I think Shiner scored again, and then here comes the same quarterback on a 50-yard run for a touchdown, so he was not giving up. So it was like back and forth there towards the end. And then again, I say, Doug's the bigger one, right? Yeah, Doug.
Yeah.
They're fourth quarter. I think it was like 5 minutes left in the game. Hand off to here, hand off there, just bulldozing 7-8 yards, 7-8 yards, 7. I'm like, oh, there goes. This is it. They get to the 20-yard line, and what happens? He fumbles the ball on the 20-yard line from scoring, gives Timpson the ball back, with 2 minutes left in the game. And I was all like, oh, these guys are on the road. They had that kickoff return. My quarterback had that 50-yard. He had the both touchdowns. And I was like, this is it. They're going to do it. He completed one good little pass, and then he just got too greedy. It's almost like little brother saved big brother, because little brother had the interception in the midfield to secure the game at the end, So it's like, here you go, big brother. I saved your day for giving that fumble, So, that's kind of what they said on there. It was like kind of funny. It just stuck in my head then. But man, those Brook brothers are something else. I mean, you have old 4-star Dalton, he did have 34 carries, man, but that's against a Timpson team. I mean, obviously, you get this far, this is what kind of games you're going to have. He still came out with 243 yards. He had that touchdown and that game-ending interception that secured the game. Doug Brooks, like I said, he was pretty well pounding there towards the end. Had 123 yards on 3 touchdowns on 18 carries. But that quarterback from Timpson, he's only a sophomore. He was 10 for 15, 129 yards, had a touchdown. He had 12 carries for 105 yards on the ground. Like I said, he had the 100-yard kickoff return. This boy has 2 more years still to play, and he's very exciting. I don't know if any of you watched this game. I know Gabriel said he watched a little bit of it, but it was like a highlight show between him and Doug. I mean, not Doug, Dalton. They would break free. Dalton would break free past the linebackers and everything. But here comes old Terry, knocking them down. And same thing the other way around. The quarterback, he would bust free. And here comes Dalton. Dalton would like sling him around, though. That was kind of funny, like a little rag doll kind of thing. It was just like grab him, swing him around, and slam him on the ground. But yeah, I'm like Steve, I'm like, Shiner's not in our coastal Bend area, but it's kind of like somebody I'm gonna watch. It's like, to me, it's like it's in our area.
Yeah, close enough.
It's in our area.
Yeah.
Is there anyone I could be proud of to go against playing against the East teams and the Dallas teams? So yeah, I'm for the Shiner on this. The whole way after that Ferrier game, obviously, but that was a fun game to watch. Like I said, it was Timpson's game. I mean, momentum was going their way, and it's just the quarterback just got too greedy on a rollout, which a lot of pressure, and instead of going out of bounds or throwing it out, he tried to force something and it wasn't there.
And that's the luck of the game. That's just what happens sometimes. You get it sometimes, and you don't. And you know what? I think what made Shiner tough to defend this year, a little bit more experience, right, with Douglas being a senior now and Dalton being a junior, is that you got to be able to account for both of them, right? So you got one that can pound and pound and pound, like you're talking about. They can take 4 or 5 minutes out of the clock, and then you got the speedster on the other side. So that puts a lot of pressure on that defense. There's just not one guy. There's 2 guys that are really good. One's a power runner, and the other one can get it to the outside. So I mean, you got to pick your poison. I think that's what made Shiner a lot tougher this year. These guys got better every year. They were able to stay healthy. And yeah, like we were saying here, it's good for these guys to get a game like this, because after beating Refer, you can, oh, we're just gonna run right through it. Now we just take the number 1 team out, and here comes the Timpson team to say, wait a minute, we're still here, and they had to grind it out, and so that's going to prepare them, I think, better for the championship game. It's going to be played, I think, in about 2 days. So we'll see what happens. But looking at both of these teams, I think China has a really good. They should be able to win this game if they come out and play their A game. If they don't fall. So I think they'll win it. We'll see. I'll make my predictions here. Um, Tonight or probably tomorrow. Next game on the GI 64 schedule, we had number 4 Albany Lions going up against the number 5 team Stratford Elks. Stratford gets the win, a 35-14. Johnny, I'll start with you. Thoughts on that game?
Oh, I had to pick Albany actually on this one. But Albany couldn't finish off the game. They were only down 17-14 at the half and just fell apart. I mean, they didn't score a point in the second half. I think it's just Stratford's. I'm assuming that Stratford's running attack pretty well put that game away. I mean, Stratford had a 309 yards rushing. That's quite a bit, to have in that semifinal game. But hats off to Stratford for pulling it off against Albany.
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, and most of that came from their quarterback. He was 5 for 13 for 75 yards in the pocket, but where he made his big where he made himself notice was he had 32 carries for 180 yards. You know what I'm saying? That's showing some dominance back there for a quarterback. They also had a junior by the name of Jones, had 12 carries for 87 yards himself. So yeah, that running attack, you know what I'm saying, that's what they used to close the game out there in the second half. And their defense really stepped up and shut down Albany in the second half. Like Johnny said, they goose ate them in the second half. They were playing a real hard competitive game up until then, but it looks like the coaches made some adjustments and just really decided to lock in on that running attack, and it was just too much for Albany to overcome.
Tony?
Yeah, I think Steve said it right. We look at the season stats. I mean, when a guy rushes for 30 times in a game, over 30 times in a game, that says a lot. Obviously couldn't get nothing going passing, 3 for 15 is not very spectacular for 75 yards, not very spectacular at all. And we're talking about a QB looking at his season stats, threw for over 2,000 yards. You know what I mean? So this is a guy who could throw the ball and score some points. But also we're talking about a guy who also rushed for 1,900 yards. So this quarterback is very active both ways in the air and on the ground. So the air wasn't working out for him, so he put it on the ground 30 times and really grinded the game down. And Albany, just again, we're talking about these smaller schools where they don't got a lot of manpower on the sideline to put them in. And when you got guys, rushing for a team rushing for 300 yards on a defense with nobody to come in, off the bench, really, it's tough. And that was really the difference maker. So hats off to that quarterback. I mean, and the rest of the Elks as well. It takes a team to win a game. But that quarterback really, in his senior year, really showed out in that state semi. So, I tell you what, going into that championship game, he's going to be exciting to watch his senior year, see what else he can do.
Hey, but you know what? We also, you got to take a hat off to the coach, right? I mean, you got a quarterback back there that is established, 2,000 plus yard passing, and to pull the reins back and say, hey, you know what? This is what's working for us tonight. Let's just pound the ball. Literally, take the ball out of the quarterback's hands as far as throwing it, and just use his feet. You know what I'm saying? So, good job by the coach by not, because a lot of times, you get deep in the playoffs or heck, man, first round of the playoffs. You see some coaches go out of their element, you know what I'm saying? Oh, kind of, a bit of a panic mode and do things that they think that might be helpful, successful, and then it ends up, blowing up in their face. But hats off to their coach recognizing what they needed that night and pulling back the reins and just really taking advantage of a weaker linebacker core.
And really making adjustments defensively because I mean like Johnny said, 17 to 14 at half and they're coming out and blanking them, so hats off to the coach for making those defensive adjustments to really shut down the Albany Lions. I mean, they came out with nothing happening for them on offense in the second half. So, again, like Steve said, hats off to the coach and the adjustments they made in a tight game to really pull away and get the win.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all about adjustments, fellas. It's all about adjustments. Number four on the GI 64 schedule, we have the number 16 Falls City going up against the number one team, Mart Panthers. I thought Mart would win this game. It was a close one, but Falls City does take the win 24-20. Tony, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts on this game? It was a good one.
Yeah, this is one of those games that we talk about, like like I said last week, pretty much every game that we previewed, or maybe the week before, but we talk about strength of schedule. You look at the teams Fall City played throughout the regular season. I really thought Mart had a really really good chance to win this game. I mean, I'm surprised that it was this close, number one, but number two, that Mart falls to Fall City. I'm really surprised by that. But we've also said, it's who wants it the most, and anything can happen on game day, and Fall City finds a way to get it done. I mean, they scored most of their points in the second half, going into the half down 10-3, and then really just taking the game away in the second half. So, Fall City finds a way to win, and hats off to them for really getting it done. I mean, looking at their stats, there's really nothing spectacular at all in the air or on the ground by the Beavers, and the Panthers. You know, looked like they were doing some things in the air, but Fall City finds a way to win. Like I said, it took the whole team to win that. It wasn't a matter of you know, uh, the quarterback doing it big, or the running backs doing it big. I mean, it was a team effort. When you look at the stats, it's very minimal offensive yards all the way around uh, by Fall City. So good job for them to get the win. Going in and really, I would say stunning Mart because I don't think this was a game anybody thought Mart was going to lose.
I know I did. I thought Mart was going to win. Johnny, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought Mart was going to win too. I mean, this is rated the what I see. This is rated the seventh number one team in the state to go down in the playoffs out of the 10. 7 out of the 10 are out from week one. And there's only 3 teams remaining that are still ranked number one. So this is a season where like number one didn't mean nothing this year, pretty much. Off of this game, yeah, I mean, this game was real tight. I mean, even after the third quarter, Mart was actually winning 13-10 at the end of the third quarter. They just couldn't. They just got outscored. I mean, it was tight. I mean, I saw it a little bit different than Tony as far as the passing and rushing. It was just backwards. No team really dominated the whole total offense. For instance, on the passing, Fall City only had 53 yards passing, and Mart had 210. But if you turn it around the other way, rushing, Mart had only 78 yards compared to Fall City 260 yards.
Yeah.
So it was not combined. It was even, but as far as how they did it, was way different on there.
Yeah. I'm talking about total game stats. I mean, that's
Yeah.
for most schools, that's halftime numbers. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I mean by, no offense really dominated each other. I mean, the numbers are really, really low. I mean, when you look at once you start getting into the 4, 5, and 6A guys, where the score could be 24-20, but there's a ton of yards in between those points, and you could tell this was these both teams grinded it out. So
Steve?
Yeah, so the Beavers run and attack, spread out. You know what I'm saying? They got their quarterback Schaefer, who rushed for 93 yards, and then they had 2 other guys with nearly 70 yards apiece. So that's where Tony's making reference to as far as the low numbers. But I mean, if you get 3, 4 guys that are rushing for 80 plus yards or 70 plus yards, and then all together you end up with the 210 and you got a successful team. But I think where this game was won was on the defensive side of the ball. The Beavers, they had a ton of total team tackles, but they had one kid stand out. His Junderish. He had a total of 14 tackles, 2 tackles for losses. They had another guy named Needby. He had 2 sacks, saying so. And then Molina had added an interception. So, they showed that they could play some defense along with it. So, I mean, this is going to be the matchup for the team we just talked about for Stratford next week, right? So this is going to be the team that they're going to be facing right here. And, I mean, I'm not too sure where I'm going to go with this one, because it shows that they got more than one dimension, right? They got more than one back. So it's kind of hard to plan for, what I'm saying? When you got 3 different guys coming at you, obviously, their linebacker for Stratford's going to have to really step up and shut down this run. There's not much of a threat in the passing game, but they did show that they can throw it. But, as far as what Stratford's going to be able to put up against this defense, I think that's going to be, that's going to be the telltale how they match up there as far as their linebacker core versus that quarterback. And what if the guy decides next week, hey, you know what, we're going to air it out. We got the, the quarterback for Stratford, like Tony said, threw for over 2,000 yards. So, it's week to week, you know what I'm saying? So maybe that guy's doing a Belichick thing and it's like, hey, we're going to play to whatever our opponent's weakest spot is. And they did that against Albany. I'm speaking about Stratford, and going to the ground more. And then maybe they see something against this other team, against Fall City, that's going to allow them to throw the ball. So that's going to be interesting to see, how their game plans change from game to game.
All right, number 5 on the GSC Sports schedule, you have Lago Vista Vikings going up against the number 5 team in the state, Lorena Leopards. I got to be honest with you guys. I didn't think Lago Vista would make it this far. I was very shocked that they were in the state semis. I thought they'd get beat. But this really wasn't a game. They went up against a team that was, I think, a lot better than them, I guess. I really didn't watch this game. But Steve, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts?
Hey, Lorena's a Valley team, correct? No.
I don't think they are. Are they, Johnny?
No, they're not. I'm looking at who they played this year. No, they're definitely not from the Valley. But this is a team that I heard quite a bit about during the regular season, on the great season that they were having, you know what I'm saying? And it doesn't surprise me that they put it to Lago Vista. Although, I mean, they did spread them out quite a bit, man. That's pretty good. They stretched it out. They beat them by over, holy crap, beat them pretty good. So other than that, through Gabriel, you know what I'm saying? That I just heard a lot about Lorena going into the postseason play. I didn't catch this game or check on any of the stats, but man, great job by Lorena. Putting up 55. Is that right? I got the score right? 55-17.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Against a very, very tough Lago Vista team. You know what I'm saying? We all know how what those guys bring. So, man, hats off to Lorena.
Johnny?
Yeah, I had Lorena over Lago Vista. I too was not too impressed with Lago Vista. I had said last week this was going to be the end for them. What was it, Tony, that Lorena had beaten somebody or played against somebody?
They played against, the first game was against the number 1 team in 3A Division 2 in Franklin.
Yeah.
And they did lose that game. They lost that game, but they played. This is the way they built their season, because, some I believe some coaches do that to their teams to see where they're at, and then the very next week they played China Springs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They lost that game as well, but for this 3A Division 1 team to go up against a really tough 4A Division 2 team in the preseason, just to check themselves, I think that's a great strategy. You don't got to win all your preseason games. You know what I mean? You could go in with 3 or 4 losses if you dominate your district and into the playoffs. And Lorena did that. They did that, and they took a beating on those games, but they put themselves in the driver's seat to have an excellent season. I mean, they're doing great. I mean, they still beating teams this bad in the semis is crazy, and they're doing it. And to your point, Gabriel, I did not see Lago Vista making it this far, but I tell you what, I was super impressed that they blanked London. They blanked London in the first round of the playoffs. I was really surprised by that, and I was like, "Whoa, whoa, Lago Vista did that?" Because when you look at the teams that they played, they didn't really dominate those teams, and we covered London Pirates all season long, and for them to shut them out completely and score over 30 points on them was very surprising. So let me know that they could do something. And then Lorena doesn't come into the picture till later on in the playoffs when we started talking about them. And I started digging into the kind of season that they had, and I was like, wow, this is a team that went toe to toe with China Springs, and they was a 21-13 game against China Springs. So that tells me that this team right here is pretty damn good. That's what that tells me.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and you talk about, and this is a good thing. You talk about coaches and their strategy, right? If you know that your district is not going to give you a lot of competition, or you're looking for that competition, you look at your district and you say, "Yeah, there might be one team here, one team there, but my boys really need to get fired up. I need to see where they're at." And yeah, this is good because, like you're saying, you play two tough teams in the preseason, you lose both of them, right? But look what it's done for you. You look at that video, you look at that film, right, and you look at where you got beat, where because that's what a loss I think shows you. What do you need to work on? What were they able to do? If it's the run defense that we couldn't stop their run, we couldn't stop their pass. It shows you a lot, and you have the rest of the year to get that right. And I think that's why playing these teams, to me, that are a little tougher, will help you down the road. Because I think you can look at what you need to work on when you're beating somebody 55, to 10. You really can't tell, what needs to be worked on or not. So, um, I just didn't think Lago Vista, they beat Industrial, right, last week, or was it 2 weeks ago?
I know they. Let me see. I know they played Lago. I mean, I
Who
know
did
they
they
played
beat?
them.
Who did Lago Vista beat last week? Do you guys know offhand?
Yeah, it was Industrial, 35-21.
See, that was shocking to me. I thought Industrial was going to win that one, and then, like you said, they blanked London. So these guys, I mean, to me, they were good. I didn't think they were this good. But then you see when they play a team like Lorena, you see the separation in this game. It was by far Lorena's way ahead of Lago Vista. But great season for Lago Vista, man. They built, and we'll see what they can do next year. Number 6 on the GI 64. You have the number 3 Mount Vernon Tigers going up against the number 2 team in the state, Brock Eagles. This was another close one, but Brock gets to win 35-28. I think I went for Brock. I don't do the predictions, but in my mind, I thought Brock would win it. Tony, I'll go back to you first. Your thoughts on this game?
Pull your mic down, Tony.
Oh, I'm sorry. I went with Brock myself. Really, just because they beat Jim Ned, and you know what I mean, and not only they beat Jim Ned, they beat Jim Ned bad, and Jim Ned, they won state last year, and that doesn't mean a lot. I mean, Coral won state 2 or 3 years ago and hadn't really done nothing else since then, and they make a run this year. But Jim Ned, that's the only team that I know of that they played, and they pretty much whipped them. And they have a tough game, and she's Mount Vernon. I didn't know a whole lot about Mount Vernon. That's really why I went with Brock. Just because of that, like I said, that Jim Ned game. That's what I went with. I didn't look at any stats in particular on this game, but man, it was an overtime game, and hats off for Brock for pulling it off. I mean, these are the kind of games you expect to see this deep in the playoffs. Not like the last game we just covered with Lorena. 55-17. That's not what you want to see this far, this late in the playoffs. So these are definitely the kind of games that I look forward to seeing. These are those edge of the seat games. Um, Yeah, from what I'm looking at, it looks like Mount Vernon, really they took the lead in the third quarter because they were down 21-7 in the half and then scored 21 points in the third and take the lead, and then Brock finds a way to score in the fourth and ties it up, and then Brock scores in overtime. So hats out to Brock. Let me see. I got a little some stats here. Mount Vernon, man, quarterback went 18 for 28 for 270 yards. That's just a ton right there, and he also put 126 yards on the ground. So that quarterback was really putting up some numbers. I mean, both quarterbacks had pretty phenomenal games. But this is one of those games that I would like to have watched, whether streaming or live, just because of how close it was and how edge of the seat it was, and how the momentum changes from sideline to sideline. So hats off to both teams for really putting on the show for the state of Texas and representing their towns well.
Steve, will Brock win the championship in a few days?
I tell you what, man, they got the defense to do it, man. These guys had 10 and a half sacks for the game, Gabriel. 10 and a half sacks in one game.
I got
And
Lorena. I got Lorena.
Dude, and they really spread it out. Brewster had 2.5. Mueller had 2. Harris had 1. Fay had 2. Steven had 1. And Mathea had 2. Dude, really spread it out. And then their ball hawks. They had 3 interceptions on the night. So that defense really rallied and made big stops when they had to. I mean, it was a great game, right? I mean, overtime win. That's awesome. But those boys played some hellified defense, when it counted, you know what I'm saying? So I definitely give them a chance. Anytime you got a defense like that, it's putting up 10 and a half sacks this deep into the playoffs, that's no fluke, baby. You know what I'm saying? They got a defense that'll travel, and I think they'll be able to, hold their own. So we're going to see, you know what I'm saying? I'll dive deeper into these numbers when, now that we have a week to think about it and see how they match up versus Lorena. But that defense, there's no doubt that defense will travel.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. Johnny, what does the Z-Man say about this game? Let's find out what Z-Man. What do you think about this game, Z-Man?
Defense, Johnny. You know our defense, yeah.
Well, I had picked Brock on this game. This was, like as Tony said, this was a tight game. It did go overtime. Brock does have a Minnesota commitment guy by the name of Nathan Jones. He didn't have a big game. He only had 3 receptions for 33 yards. But guys like that commit to schools like that, they're paid because they're special. And he was basically the one that had that reception in overtime to win the game.
Well, we'll see what
like
happens.
A big playmaker. You need guys like that, big playmakers to win games. You might want to have those big stats, but you make big plays like that when you really need it. That's telling something what an individual he is.
Yeah, you do. To win a state title, you need playmakers. When you need them, they need to come up big, make a big catch, make a big run, break a tackle, make a tackle, intercept. You got to have those kind of guys on your team when you need a big play that they can come up and make it to give yourself a chance to win. Because your competition on the other side is just as good, or if they're a little below, a little ahead, but they're no joke. So you got to come out and play your A game. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. We'll see on your predictions what you guys pick. But we'll go to the next game, which is game number 7 on the GI 64 schedule. You got the number 1 team in the state of Texas, the Franklin Lions, going up against the number 8 team, Waskom Wildcats. Now we talked about Waskom. They're a good team, but they take the loss by 2 touchdowns. Franklin beats them 28-14. Competitive game. It was a good one, Steve. I mean, Johnny, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts? Who did you have, Franklin or Waskom? I think you picked Franklin, right?
I usually pick Franklin. Yeah, I did. I said they were going to win. I said they're going to win the whole thing, and I'm still sticking with it. Franklin's junior running back, Brian Washington, he had 18 carries for 147 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Now, Waskom, they have a sophomore quarterback by the name of Cole Watson. He actually is basically, I guess, I'm assuming this is probably an option team. because he had 23 carries for 144 yards and a touchdown. You know, big game. Even though they scored only 14 against Franklin, but Franklin ain't no joke. For him being a sophomore and, you know, getting some yards like that, Waskom can be going to come around for a couple more years still.
Steve?
Man, I got nothing on this thing. I found no stats on this. It's both coaches, I guess, decided not to put anything out. But, you know what I'm saying? So Waskom scored 7 in the first and then once again in the third quarter. And Franklin's defense, you know what I'm saying, pitched shutout for 2 quarters. And you can do that, man. You know what I'm saying? You can goose egg a team for basically a half. Then you got a good defense, you know what I'm saying? So Franklin gets the W, you know what I'm saying? Regardless of how close they allowed the opponent to get, they still did what they had to do. I think this is a great game by Franklin.
Tony?
Yeah. Man, I'm just watching the highlights right now, and that running back, like Steve said, there's no stats on him, but I do got Franklin's total yards. They had 373 total yards, but that running back doesn't go down. That running back, just looking at the highlights, he's hard to take down, and both teams had big offensive defensive linemen. But man, Franklin, like Johnny said, I don't think nobody's gonna beat him this year. I thought that they would win hands down, and I know Franklin's a good enough team. That's really why I went with Lorena, just because like I mentioned earlier, Lorena played Franklin, a team that I know is really good, in the beginning of the season to help Lorena prepare for where they're at now. So I think Franklin is definitely going to win state. I don't think that Gunter's going to give them. Well, I mean, you know what? It's going to be a good game. I don't want to say Franklin's going to run over him. It's going to be a good game, but I think Franklin's going to win, and Franklin. That defense, like Steve said, shut him out for 2 quarters, and whether it's the second and the fourth or the first and the third or the whole second half, that defense pitched a shutout 2 quarters, and it's really hard to win games when you don't score any points this late in the playoffs on your quarters, even if it's a field goal, and you got to put some points on the board.
So Franklin then will play the team that we're going to talk about next, which is game number 8 on the GI 64 schedule. The number 2 team in the state of Texas, the Gunter Tigers, took on the number 7 team, Roosevelt Eagles, and Gunter gets the big win over the number 7 team in the state of Texas, 47-12. So now Gunter will be playing Franklin. Ooh, that's going to be a good one. Um, Steve, I'll go to you first. Who do you got, man? Or no, actually, this game, Gunter. I was gonna tell you, who do you got, Gunter, but we can't say that yet. Your thoughts on the game? Because I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna go with Franklin, but I think Gunter isn't gonna be as easy as we all think it is. It's gonna be a game.
Hell no, they scored 47 points, man. And although I can't find any stats for Gunter on this game, everything's for the Eagles. They really shut down. I mean, well, the Eagles aren't a passing team. They had 0 completions on 3 attempts. So they might as well have left the quarterback in the locker room as far as throwing the ball, though. Now, he did run the ball 23 times for 114 yards against Gunter, but that was the only really big guy that was producing on offense. You know what I'm saying? So Gunter did a great job shutting everybody else out. They pretty much held everybody under 30 yards for the exception. They had one other guy, Diaz, rush for 60. But, I mean, so I'm looking at it. I don't know. I can't add that fast, but I'm looking at what did they get, Johnny? Close to 300 rushing yards, maybe total. I don't have a total stat. I just have a list of numbers. But I mean, Gunter get it.
It don't look like it was. It don't look like it was in that high.
I mean, if Trevino
got a couple individual, but they're not that high.
Yeah, no, they kind of spread it out. There's a few with 27, 14, 10, stuff like that. But I guarantee it's probably under 300 yards rushing. So I'm thinking maybe somewhere in around 250, 270, something like that. But, they did a great job. Their defense really showed up against a running team. They know this is a running team, right? With only, with only 3 attempts, this is what these guys came to do. So Gunter did their job and shut down their running attack. and got 47 points on the way to it. Man, I give him a shot. I definitely give him a shot. These last few games here, I don't know, guys. I mean, I went undefeated this week. We all know that. I went undefeated the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, he did. He didn't
I
lose
didn't
one.
turn him. I didn't turn in my list, but I just wanted to let y'all know that hey, I didn't miss any picks the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, you didn't lose
Y'all
one.
just take my word on it, okay?
Absolutely. Tony, your thoughts on the Gunter's big win?
Yeah, man, like I said about the last game, I think Franklin's gonna win it all, but scoring 47 points and the state semis, it says a lot about a team and the kind of offense that they got, and then only allowing 12 points for the other team. It says a lot about their defense. I wish there was some stats on this. There isn't. Uh, but wow, I mean, what a way to show out in the state semis. You know, there. I- who do I got? Roosevelt, yeah. I mean, I thought Lubbock was going to win the game. I just think when you get this late in the playoffs, it's those teams from the north that normally dominate and it proved me wrong this week. So I went with Lubbock, but we'll see what happens. They'll have their hands full this week against Franklin.
They will. It'll be a good one, I hope. Johnny?
Yeah, I went with Gunter on this one. Gunter has a Texas Tech guy coming up by the name of Hut Graham. Um, just a little highlight on him. He went 5 for 8 passing, 110 yards and a touchdown. Also on the ground, he had 15 carries, 114 yards rushing. They have a guy by the name of Ethan Sloan. He had 80 yards on 9 rushing attempts, 3 touchdowns, and he also had a 76-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Special teams, man. Even though that it was a big blowout, man, you need playmakers like that on special teams.
Yeah, this Franklin Gunter, I think it's going to be a good one. So we'll see what happens. And I think, guys, that the playoffs start on Wednesday. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So it's a couple of days, man. So you got one more day, and then it starts. So it's going to be good. Um, Now we'll go to the ninth game on the J64 schedule, and you had the number 2 Stephenville Yellow Jackets going up against the number 17 Hirschi. I think I hope I said that right.
Hershey.
Yeah,
Hirschi. It's
Hirschi.
like the candy bar.
Only not spelled like it, right? Yeah.
They're
No.
from Wichita Falls.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Hirschi Huskies. So this was a really close one, guys. Man, this would have been a good game to go and watch because and I thought Stephenville would win, but it was a lot closer than I thought. 38-35. Stephenville wins. Johnny, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts on the game?
I had picked Stephenville, but man, this was a real good game. I just went with Stephenville just because I've always known them for so long. The record has shown no shame on that. They had a guy by the name of Coy Ekin. He had 75 yards receiving on five receptions and 2 touchdowns. Hirschi did to go back down. I mean, they have a guy by the Marion Peterson. He had a 100-yard game for 1 touchdown. So I guess they were just going back and forth. This is all I have for them as far as stats on that. 100-yard rusher in a game like that. It's a tight game. You can tell how good that game was.
Tony?
Yeah, I went with Stephenville as well. Let's see. I know there's a reason why I went with Stephenville. Let's see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's why I went with Stephenville. Yeah, I mean they take out Argyle and Melissa. It's hard to bet against a team that could take those 2 teams out. We talked about Melissa a few weeks ago. And then Argyle, Argyle is defending state champs. 15-0 record. It's really hard to go against them. I didn't really know a whole lot about this Wichita team, but just looking at the teams, that Stephenville played and who they had to defeat to get here is why I went with them. Um, let's see. Trying to get some stats. Yeah. The quarterback over there in Stephenville, he's got 4,000 yards passing on the season. 4,000 yards passing on the season, completing 65% of his passes and 49 touchdowns.
That's crazy.
Yeah, this is season stats for he's a junior, Lambert. If he's not committed somewhere right now, he will be next year because that's pretty damn impressive right there. I did, just looking at it right now. And then and even with the quarterback that's throwing for 4,000 yards, they still have two running backs that almost hit 1,000. So they're running the ball, they're putting the ball on the ground too. With the quarterback that's passing for 4,000 yards, and then Lambert himself rushes for almost 800 yards on the season. So, I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I knew Stephenville had a good program. If you would have asked me in the beginning of the season if I thought that Stephenville was going to be in the state championship game when you have teams like Melissa and Argyle, I would have said no, I don't think so. Especially since they had to play against each other to get to state, I would have said heck no. They had to go to those teams, but they went through those teams. So again, I don't know a whole lot about the teams that Hirschi had to get to go through to get here, but I do know the teams that Stephenville had to go through to get here, and that says a whole lot about them. And now that I'm digging into their stats, that quarterback right there, 4,000 yards on in one season is pretty damn phenomenal.
Steve, I haven't gone to you yet, have I?
No, not yet.
Go ahead.
So Hirschi, I've heard about Hirschi only because I got family lives up in Wichita Falls, and my little niece went to this high school right here, and they're always in contention. I'm sorry, kind of like Rockport, right? Just could never get it over a hump. Could never get past the third round. Could never get past the third round. Well, you know what I'm saying. So they were really competitive last year. You know what I'm saying. Again, they didn't make a deep run, but they got past the second round and got knocked off, because I talked to my brother-in-law and he was talking about, because my niece graduated just last year, and he was telling me how competitive they were as far as the football goes, because he was trying to get Joey to move up there, which is ridiculous. But anyway, what I'm looking at is that what this game came down to was a battle of the 2-point conversions. All right. So it's a close game at half, right? It's 24-21. They go into the third quarter. Stephenville misses on a 2-point conversion. Okay. Hirschi goes down. They score. They make a 2-point conversion. Right. And then they get to the fourth quarter, and that's how Stephenville wins the game on a 2-point conversion. They win by 2. Right. No, they kick. That's what they did. Yeah, they win by 3, but they got 8 points there in the fourth quarter. So that's what it came down to. I think this is a really good game played by Hirschi. That's only going to give them confidence, because, like I said, they have been, right there on the cusp of doing something great, and this should give them more confidence into next year to try to get over the hump and get past these guys. So I mean, they made an excellent run this year. Hats off to them. They did a lot. They did better than they did the year before. So this is a first for them, making this deep of a run. So I look for Hirschi to be somebody, to keep an eye out for. You know what I'm saying? I know. So we'll see what it goes. I haven't talked to my brother-in-law, but I'm sure that he's been kind of waiting to call me and let me know how they did, because he knew we were out early. I talked to him after we got eliminated, and he had told us about his team or whatever and how they were doing. So I'm expecting a phone call. You know what I'm saying? But man, great job by Hirschi, and it's tough to lose a game like that. You know what I'm saying? Late in the game, and it came down to special teams. One of Johnny's big things, right? That going for 2 or whatever. No, that's not special. Well, whatever. But I mean, they lose a hard-fought game, man. It can only give them confidence going into next year. So great job, great game.
Absolutely, it was a good game. Johnny, did I already go to you? Did everybody get a shot, or did I miss
Yeah,
somebody?
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I
So
just wanna add something to what Steve said about the confidence that they got going into next year. I'm looking at the roster for Hirschi. They got a freshman quarterback. They
Yeah.
got a freshman and a junior quarterback, both of them passing for over 1,000 yards. And just looking at the running backs, I see a lot of freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. There's a few seniors in there, but the guys that carry most of the weight are freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. So that's a young football team. So, when you think about that, and Cuero's another one, you got a lot of young players on that team playing against, 17 and 18-year-olds, guys that are already committed to D1 and D2 colleges. These guys are competing with those guys. So I know for a fact, just based off of what I'm looking at roster wise, if those guys stick around and they stay together, we'll be talking about them next year for sure.
absolutely, I think we will. And we'll start off with that team. We'll look at them early on in the preseason, see what they're doing in that part of the state. Number 10 on the GI 64 schedule, you had the number one team, LBJ Jaguars, going up against Chapel Hill Bulldogs. Boy, I tell you, I've said from way back that LBJ would win the title. But I'm telling you, I watched this game from beginning to end. Chapel Hill should have won this game. They were very impressive. But it shows you when LBJ how quick this team could score. They were down by 2 scores, in the fourth quarter, and boy, they just went to another level and scored quickly. And it came down to one pass play, and it was one on one, and they got the touchdown to get the win. 38-35, but this was a great game from beginning to end. I'll start off with Johnny first. Johnny, your thoughts on this game?
Well, I was gonna leave this to these these words to the end of this game, but I'm gonna go behind what Tony was talking about. Young kids coming up. Chapel Hill is gonna be around. That's gonna be a team to be listening to. Um, that they're playing with a freshman quarterback. He had 174 yards on 18 attempts. No, he rushed for 18 times for 174 yards and 3 touchdowns. They're also playing with a freshman running back, Ricky Stewart. He had 112 yards on 14 carries and a touchdown. This is against LBJ. These freshmen are playing against. So this is a Chapel Hill that could be coming around for a few more years. With these two coming up, setting a good example for everybody else. I also said LBJ is going to win the whole deal. I've been saying it for a while. They have a Texas Southern guy by the name of Oscar Gordon. He had 116 yards passing, a touchdown. He had 115 yards rushing. But their big playmaker that game was their junior Cedric Alexander. He had 33 rushes for 210 yards and 3 touchdowns.
And that's impressive. I'm telling you, man, this game was good. Tony, listen. Tony and Johnny just talked about that quarterback that was a freshman and the running back. These guys they were the one wreaking havoc against LBJ. It was a quarterback and the running back. And when I first, started hearing the announcer say, "Yeah, they're freshmen," I was, "Oh man, freshman," and it just kept getting better and better. This game came down to LBJ just being able to go to another level. I mean, they were really down. Chapel Hill gets one stop, um, and they can run the clock. I mean, that's it. It's over. It takes it down to under 4 minutes. But when they scored and they got the 2 points, LBJ came back and scored. I mean, it was within like a minute, little over a minute, and then they went three and out. And so I think they got a little conservative, Chapel Hill, and then LBJ just drove it all the way down again. It came down to one final play, and they were able to get it. I don't know if you saw the game, Tony, but it was a great one. Your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I didn't watch the game. I was keeping up with the score on the score tracker. Uh, and yeah, it was a good game. I didn't see it coming. We talked about Chapel Hill and the kind of points that they could score. So for this team to come in and really and stun them, and I think this is one of those games like we talked about with Shiner. When they played against Timpson. This is a game that they needed to play. They needed to have. Brings them down to earth. Says, "Hey, this is where you're at, guys. You can lose. You are beatable." Taking them into next week. So I think definitely, it was a game they had to have. But Chapel Hill, what a way to go out, playing against the number one team in the state and almost beating them. I I didn't hear. Did y'all say that did it come down to a field goal or how was it a 3-point game? Does anybody know? Did somebody speak on that? I was looking at some other stuff.
Johnny, you
They
want to tell him?
scored. They scored 12. LBJ scored 12 in the final quarter, and Chapel Hill only scored the 8. They went for 2 and got it, so they scored 8. But they were outscored 12-8 in the fourth quarter.
Okay. So LBJ must have missed the 2-point, I guess.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, and just going back to that freshman quarterback that you were talking about, Brisbane, that he's got 1,000 yards passing on the season, and he's got 1,300 yards rushing on the season. So it's definitely a player to watch in Texas. Still got 3 more years to play. So we look forward to seeing what Chapel Hill does next year, and LBJ. From what I remember looking at them early on, I believe they were pretty senior heavy. Johnny, is that correct?
I
LBJ?
don't know. I don't know.
I thought we had talked about that at one point. Either way, you know, uh, Chapel Hill. If you look at the kind of season that they had, I mean, they play Kilgore in district and lose by 20 points, and then come back and beat them in the playoffs and beat them in overtime. It shows that they're a team that can stay in it, and they did that with OBJ. They weren't able to finish the game off and get the win, but what a way to go out for Chapel Hill.
Well, if you look at it, Tony, right, you know that they've got their playmakers in these two guys for the next 3 years, right? The running back and the skill positions that they need. So if they get a good offensive line, they got a good defense. If they get the rest of the average players or better than average, this team's going to win a state title, man. Because these guys are this quarterback and running back, they weren't even small as freshmen. I was looking at how I was like, dude, they don't even look like they look like they're like juniors or seniors. So and the scary part is they still got some growing. They're gonna grow more, and they're gonna get stronger. So, man, and they're doing this against the number one team in the state of Texas, and really they were ahead and had a great opportunity to win the game. So, yeah, I think you're gonna hear about these two guys. We're gonna pay attention to them next year, and I think Chapel Hill has a really good chance of winning maybe one or two titles in the next 3 years. Steve, your thoughts on the game?
You know what's really crazy about Chapel Hill is that they lost 3 district games this year. 3 games in their
Mhm.
district that they lost. You know what I'm saying? They back into the playoffs and they go on a crazy run, um, nearly knocking off, one of the best teams in Texas. You know what I'm saying? Gabriel said LBJ so many times this year. You know what I'm saying? I'm ready to take those letters out of the alphabet. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So, they go up against LBJ, who everybody who's anybody was picking to win. And they got the lead going into the third quarter. You know what I'm saying? They're up 27-26 going into the final frame. You know what I'm saying? And to lose there at the end had to be tough, you know what I'm saying, for them to give up the 12 points late in the game. You know what I'm saying? That had to be heartbreaking for them. But like you guys are saying, they'll be back. They're a really young team. They had a really successful season that went against, they checked all the boxes, right? They dug themselves out of a terrible district schedule. You know what I'm saying? They lose 3 in district. They make it to the playoffs. Hey, the coach is selling them. Hey, it's all about just getting in. Let's get in and let's see what happens. This is the prototypical team that all those coaches, that I be, preaching about, like, hey, it's never over. You're never out until you're out. You know what I'm saying? Let's just keep playing. And to get those guys to be within, 3 points of beating, one of the highest ranked teams in the state, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's awesome for their team. And I think it's only going to do good things. But, hey, the pursuit continues for LBJ. And hats off to them. You know what I'm saying? We can't just overwhelm the airwaves with how good of a job Chapel Hill did. You know what I'm saying? Hats off to LBJ for rallying and getting those guys to win in a tough game. You know what I'm saying? Deep into the season. You know what I'm saying? So like we said earlier, a lot of some of these teams needed these tight games in order to solidify their great season. You're like, hey, listen, we're not just going to run over people. Let's show that we got the grit to come back, because they had to come back, and they did it in the fourth quarter when it counted. Great teams do that. I'm saying, they rally, and they scored 12 points and enough to get the victory, and that just shows how great LBJ really is. They truly are deserving of all the flattering compliments that they get.
Yeah, it was, and I gotta tell you, when they were down, it looked like Chapel Hill, because Chapel Hill, if they could have got one stop and got a couple first down, the game's over, because they were down two scores. With that 2 point, they had to score. They were up by 9 points, I believe, if I'm saying this correctly. So even if they scored and came down, they had to get the ball back, and they did. They went down the field. They went like 80 or something yards, 70 something yards, and within like a little over a minute, and man, they got in that end zone quick. And I remember the announcer just saying, "Dude, there's like 6 minutes left in the game." They scored quickly, and then they kick the ball. Chapel Hill goes 3 and out. They get the ball back, and they got to drive down that field again, and they do, and it comes down to a one-on-one play in the corner of the side of the end zone, and they get the touchdown. I mean, it was just impressive.
You know what I didn't understand? I remember now. I didn't understand why they went for the 2 point conversion.
Right.
They,
I
they, gave,
saw that. I saw that on your
they,
text.
they gave the other team a chance to tie the game with a field goal.
Yep.
They were up
3
by
points.
3.
Yep.
What's the point of going up by 5?
I know. I know. I didn't understand it either.
So all you kick is a field goal, they still got to score a touchdown.
Right.
I didn't understand what was the deal with them trying to go for 2.
Right. I didn't understand that either. And they just got, I don't want to say it's luck, because they've got skilled players, and that quarterback just made some great throws. But like Steve said, man, that just shows how good that team is. When they had to come up big and score, they did. When they had to drive down the field twice, they did. I mean, Chapel Hill couldn't stop them. I mean, watching the game, I think Johnny watched it too. They basically got what they made it happen, and Chapel Hill couldn't do anything to stop them when it counted. So that's what great teams do. When they I got to go down and drive, they had the quarterback, the receivers, and the running back. They did it. So a great win for them, and I think they'll win the championship. We'll see. But man, Chapel Hill again. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about that team next year for sure. Number 11 on the JI64 schedule, you have the number 2 Gilmer Buckeyes going up against the number 3 team, Salina Bobcats. The Buckeyes take the big win, 27-7. Steve, I'll go to you first.
Well, I'll tell you, the highlight of this game for the Buckeyes is their quarterback tension. He went 15 for 25 for 264 yards is what I got on the stat book. He also rushed the ball 5 times for 17 yards. So great win by Gilmer. I'm watching them close, right? So they're the last team out last year, right? They lose the cartridge. So this was, I think I picked Gilmer to win state on those early picks that we did. You know what I'm saying? Remember that very first thing that we put out? I put Gilmer.
You went for them over Carthage in week 1 or 2 or something like that, and you said that.
Yeah. So, but I mean, they got a very tough game coming up against China Springs, and we'll touch on that later. So, scoring 27 points doesn't give me a ton of confidence in them. I really don't know much about Salina. They shut them down for the most part, only allowing 7 points. But so I'm not too sure. I mean, it's kind of the writings on the wall there. You know what I'm saying? You only muster up 27 points against Salina. And again, I don't know much about them, but China Springs has been on such a roll. So that's going to be a real tough one right there. But I'm going to have to go with my pick, though. But I did pick them to make this deep of a run, though.
You did. I do remember thinking that you were crazy for betting against Carthage. I do remember that very clearly. I didn't think that they would be here. But I know that they're happy that Carthage is out. But I don't know if they're happy with who they got to play. I know you say you didn't know nothing about Salina. They're another one of those teams who really load up their preseason. They played against Melissa and they beat Melissa. They played Paris. They beat Paris, and they lost to Argyle 23-0. So that was how their preseason looked. So and then they kind of whip everyone else they play in district, and here they are. Um, because they, I think again strategy. They know who they got in district, so they load up their non-district games so that they get ready, because Salina and I mean they're in a tough district. They're in a tough district. I mean they're in a tough area. The team that they got to play. That's Region 3, right, Johnny? Region 3, or no, Region 2,
Two.
2,
I want to say
right?
two.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, But Gilmer, I mean Gilmer, I talked about the teams that Stephenville had to defeat to get here. Gilmer is in a tough district. Every week that they play is tough. You know what I mean? They got to play Pleasant Grove. Pleasant Grove is a team that's been there, been to state many times. Cattle Mills, we talked about Cattle Mills last year, deep in the playoffs. They play Carthage early on in the preseason. So Gilmer's had to defeat some tough teams to get here where they're at right now. And like I said, they're probably breathing easy because Carthage is out, the team that took them out last year and then the beginning of the season this year. But you know, they're here. Steve, you predicted them to be here. Let's see if they can finish it off. We'll see. It's going to be tough against a really, really good China Springs team.
Can't hear you, Gabe.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I disconnected my thing down here on the bottom. I was messing with. Go ahead,
He's done.
That's all I got.
Johnny.
It's Johnny's turn.
Okay, go
Oh,
ahead,
okay.
Johnny.
What were you saying? You left us hanging there. Yeah, Tennyson, he's a UTSA commit, but it looks like he has a favorite receiver by the name of Rowan Flulin. He had 9 receptions for 185 yards and a touchdown. So I don't know what number he is, but that's probably going to be his main target against China Springs.
Anybody else got anything else?
Oh, that's
That's
it.
it. It's gonna be a good game. This championship's this game. It's gonna be a good game. Gilmer. Like I said, they probably got a little bit of confidence going into this game just because Carthage is not the team they got to face. But boy, I tell you what, China Springs is not gonna lay down. So this is definitely gonna be a game to watch.
Number 12 on the GI64 schedule had number 17 Cuero Gobblers going up against the number 15, the China Springs Cougars. Now we've talked a lot. Cuero is we know Cuero very well. They're from our area. I know a lot of us, if not all of us, we're hoping that Cuero would get the win over China Springs. I personally thought that it was going to be an uphill battle for them, but China Springs in the playoffs, just their competition and the wins that they got to me were more impressive than Cuero's wins. Of course, Wimberley and Navarro are always there, but they just didn't appear to be that tough to me this year like they have been in the past. And to me, China Springs coming off of 2 big wins with West Orange Stark, and then the week before Carthage, it was just like 2 state titles, right? Like they played 2 state titles right there in these 2, and they were very impressive. So I thought that China Springs would beat Cuero, and they did 34-9. But before I go to Steve, I'll say this: that to me, I think Cuero has obviously Cuero is going to be back. That's a very young team. And I look for them to make another run and get by where they're at now, or they'll be the team I think that we'll have to beat next year to get out of the region. So to me, I think Cuero is going to be tougher next year than they were this year. Steve, your thoughts on the game, and where do you think Cuero will finish next year?
Yeah, I think they'll definitely bounce back and make another deep run. There's no doubt that they got talent over there. They're going to be losing their quarterback, but those skill position players that they have down there are, there's not a lot of times where you can actually speak to what you see, right? What I saw for myself, you know what I'm saying? Live on the field is different than you watching tape and stuff like this. And this team was extremely fast, man. And they had a awesome run. Hats off to the coaching staff down there in Cuero and all those boys. I know this is not the way they wanted to end it, especially offensively. Well, no, especially defensively, actually, you know what I'm saying? Giving up 30, uh, over 30 points to a China Springs team. Um, but I mean, China Springs came, like you said, they're just on such a big roll. You know, beating a team like Carthage does more than what you think. You know, it's more than stats. You know, it really puts a charge in those boys' hearts and minds, and gets them to go out the following week to answer that bell again. And they did it in consecutive weeks. And then moving on to Cuero. Uh, Cuero just ran into a steamroller, man. China Springs is playing at such a high level right now. Um, but we'll see how next week matchup goes. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking forward to that game, see how that thing works out, see how Gilmer matches up. Yeah, they got blowed out by Carthage last year. Isn't that right, Tony? They got
Yeah.
beat pretty bad in the state game. So I'm sure they're looking for redemption, or at least play better for sure. You know what I'm saying? Put a better game up against China Springs, but it's going to be really, really, really tough. You know what I'm saying? Cuero was a great team with lots of heart, and to hold them to 9 points, I mean, that's shutting somebody out, this deep into the playoffs. So hats off China Springs, man.
Tony,
Yeah. First thing you asked is what did I think Cuero was gonna do next year? Yeah, I think Cuero. I picked Cuero, and not because they're from our area, and not because I was just going for them. I picked them because of the defense. And one of the things, Steve said they lose the quarterback, and I made a comment the last time we talked about him, and I said the quarterback wasn't that good. And I didn't mean the quarterback wasn't that good. What I mean is that quarterback was there. He did what he was supposed to do, but those receivers, that running back, and that linebacker core is that Cuero team. I mean, those guys, and those are the guys that are coming back. You know what I mean? That linebacker core. They're a young football team in Cuero. I looked at the roster for China Springs. They got a lot of seniors on that team. So Cuero has a really good chance of being the more dominant team next year. I didn't look at Gilmer's um, roster. I know Carthage had a senior heavy team, and now looking at China Springs, they got a senior heavy team, and Cuero does not. So Cuero definitely will be a contender next year for state. And if Rockport stays in 4A Division II next year, they will have their hands full playing against a really tough Cuero team next year. But China Springs, like you said, Gabriel, and you asked me about this last week. Were their wins more impressive than Cuero's wins? I mean, it's really hard to say. I mean, Carthage is the defending state champs. West Orange Stark is always good. Um, but just 2 years ago, Wimberley was a runner-up in state, and Navarro, and both Wimberley make deep runs every year. So it's really hard to say because all of those teams don't play each other. You know what I mean? They're not all in the same district, so it's hard to tell who's better and who's not better. I really thought that Cuero's defense was good enough to be better than this, to be better than 34-9. I thought their defense was better than that. Um, China Springs did have impressive wins, but I really thought Cuero's defense was better than 34-9. And looking at the cornerbacks for China Springs, their cornerbacks weren't big, and remember Cuero has two big receivers, one 6'3" and 6'4", or 6'2" and 6'3", something like that. And I thought they'd have that advantage. But I didn't watch the game. I don't know if Cuero tried to run the ball more or try to throw the ball. I'm not really sure. Uh, but I thought that gave them that advantage. And like I said, that linebacker core, it's hard to bet against those guys. They're really, really good. So we'll
Johnny,
see.
I'll tell you, I thought that Cuero's defense could hang with China Springs because I agree with Tony. The defense is good. I didn't think Cuero's offense could score on on China Springs defense. That's where I thought China Springs had the advantage because going up against an offense like Carthage, going up against an offense like West Orange Stark, to me, I thought Johnny, I said, man, that's where the gap is. I thought Cuero's defense could play with anybody. You know, as long as the offense can score because these guys are really good. I mean, they've got some guys on that defense that can play. And this game too. I mean, they didn't do their this wasn't the Cuero's best game, but they held a pretty good China Springs. They held their own for the most part. But I thought that, in my opinion, Cuero's offense was not going to be able to score against China Springs defense, and that proved to be the case. They only got 9 points. That wasn't going to be enough to beat China Springs. Your thoughts on the game?
Um, all I'm saying is China Springs is those players are huge, big. Just watching the game, it's big. It's ridiculous. I tried to look up old Sean Burke's numbers, but they weren't there. They I don't think he was even there. I don't think he might not even got into double digits in this game. He ran into a wall a few times. China Springs just outplayed them. I mean, it ain't no blowout, but to me, it's a blowout. That Cuero could not move the ball. I mean, China Springs took off from the game, and there was no coming back. There was no comeback in that game. We're talking about comparisons and this and that. Cuero. Yeah, I too looked at the way Gabriel was looking at it as far as what China Springs and what region they come from, not necessarily the district, the region they come from. That region is pretty well dominated this whole last 10, 15 years. Cuero's gotten in there, but hey, Cuero's the only one in this whole region that's gotten through this. Region 3 is pretty well dominated this whole state and at that level. So comparing the teams to then and now, it's like from them, Region 3 to Region 4, I gotta say there is no comparison. It just shows right there. I mean, Cuero was pretty well dominant. Cuero was a dominant team in this region, and it just shows what China Springs can do and what other teams are out there in that area. We're talking about Carthage. Winning states here and there. China Springs, this was the year. I mean, there's always going to be a team that goes down, and this is a China Springs that looks like it's going to take it all. I had to look up this guy, but I couldn't find no stats, no commitment where he's going or anything like that. But a guy by the name of Chris Lyon.
Oh yeah.
6'7", 335 pounds.
I saw that. He's a senior.
This boy against Corey, he played tackle. He played guard. And the boy was snapping the ball too. I can't believe how he could get down low like that to snap a ball. I mean, that's an athlete right there. But I couldn't figure out where he goes, what he does. I mean, it's just that dude just stood out to me because he was basically like looking down on the Cuero defensive line the whole time. I'm like, man, that dude's just huge. But I'm kind of excited to see a little bit more on actual real TV instead of a live feed or live thing, whatever. So I'm probably gonna. I don't know what time that game's gonna be or whatever, but I might go to a bar on that one.
And you know what, Johnny and guys, China Springs was really never in any danger of losing this game from the beginning to the end. I mean, you could just see it. You could just see they could get whatever they wanted, and it was Cuero's. And I was with Tony too. That the quarterback to me, I mean, he was good for Cuero, but he wasn't like a dominant guy that could run. Also, like you see some of these teams that the quarterback can pass, but he can also run. He wasn't a threat on the run where he could make a difference. For that defense. China Springs just basically knows there's one thing that they're going to want to do, and that's throw deep. And they had the secondary that could stay with these guys one on one. So when you got corners and safeties or corners that can go one on one and take this guys, and they don't need any help. Then what do you do with the rest of the guys, man? You bring them up and you stop that run. So Cuero had a hard time, I think, running it. But this is a good game for Cuero, because a lot of their players will be back next year. And I'm sure they're going to stay in this, Division 4A, Division 2, I believe. And so they'll be back again. And this will be the team that if they stay where they're at, you'll have to beat them next year. This will be the team that you're going to have to beat to get out of the region. I think Cuero's going to probably get out of the region again next year. And then we'll see what happens. We'll see what China Springs is at or who they'll be playing. But I definitely expect Cuero to be back making a lot of noise like they were this year. But that's definitely the team I think so far that you're going to have to beat early on because they're the favorite to get out of the region if they stay where they're at. We'll see what the other teams have, but man, great season for the Cuero Gobblers. Just ran in this year to a better China Springs team. But hey, if you're Cuero, what can you say? We lost to a team to beat Carthage, and we lost to a team to beat West Orange Stark. So hey, I mean, nothing to put your heads down on. But I expect Cuero will be back. Let's see if China Springs can finish it off one more time and get that state title. If they can get that state title, guys, man, how impressive would that be for a season where they took out Carthage, who hadn't lost it? I don't know, 40, what was it, 20 plus games, 40 plus games? Yeah.
41 games, 41
Wow.
game winning streak.
And then you take out Orange Court, and then you end it with a state championship, man. That's some that's for the man. That's just great memories, man. They'll be talking about this 25, 30 years later, So great win. For these guys. The next game that we'll talk about will be a team that's right here from our area. It's the Florida Bluff Hornets going up against a really tough Pateau Panthers team. And really, guys, the Florida Bluff took a really a beat down. The Panthers beat them 73-14. I saw a guy post something, and he said, he talked about, they need to go up there and face tougher competition in the preseason and play these teams from. I was reading a post that somebody said, they got to go up and play Houston and Dallas, and that ain't gonna matter, guys. That listen, you got who you got on your team, and they got what they got on their team. This team was just they were just better all around. So, Tony, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts on this game? It wasn't surprising to me. I didn't think that this team was going to score 70. I thought they were in the 50s maybe, but I did see a blowout between this team and Flower Bluff. Your thoughts?
Yeah. First I'll comment on the comment that you made about uh them having to play tougher teams. They had to play Veterans Memorial twice. Veterans Memorial was in the top 10 the whole season. So they played against tough competition. They played against Gregory Portland twice, who was a young team, up and coming team. So they played against some really good, talented football teams to get to where they were. But this Katy team, I mean, they pretty much won the game in the first quarter. It's 45-7. And I don't imagine that, and it's possible that starters played the whole game. I don't imagine that they did, just by the amount of points they scored the rest of the game. Maybe Flower Bluff's defense, buckled down and started making some stops, but the game was over in the first quarter when they went down 45-7. Quarterback completed 84% of his passes. Didn't get a ton of yards, 200 yards. I mean, that's pretty good. 3 touchdowns, but only on 11 passes. So he was averaging 20 yards, almost 20 yards a pass. Like I said, 84% completion. Rushing wise, they didn't have anybody picking up a ton of yards on that Panthers team. I don't got any Hornets score stats, but I mean they only scored 14 points. I don't imagine that they had a ton. But yeah, I mean this Pateau team plays against pretty tough competition all year as well. Neither of these teams are here on accident. They're here because they fought hard to get here. But Flower Bluff, they didn't do enough to even compete in this game. I didn't watch it. I don't know what went wrong here. But they find a way to beat Veterans Memorial last week, and that team at one point was ranked, I think, fifth in state, right? Is that correct? I think they got as high as fifth, Veterans Memorial, and they lose to them in district and come back and beat them in the playoffs. So I thought this was a team that could come and compete in the state semis, but they didn't. Again, I don't know what happened to them specifically for the score to be this lopsided. You don't expect scores like this in the state semis, especially when you get to these bigger schools where it should be a little bit tougher. But you know, Pateau comes and just puts a whipping on them.
Johnny, but if you're Flower Bluff, man, you got nothing to be ashamed of. I mean,
Nope.
you were your third team in district. You were able to put it together in the playoffs and had, like Tony said, some impressive wins. Nothing to be ashamed of. I think you just come across a better team. I mean, I don't know if they're
Yeah.
that much better than Flower Bluff, 73. I mean, I think that, at some point, I think it was a little surprising. People were surprised about the score, that they were able to score that much on a defense that, when you get to the state semis, right, you don't expect to lose by that much. But I thought that, you know, um, the Panthers were the better team. I mean, I thought they were going to win the game anyway. Your thoughts on on this game?
Yeah, I knew Katie was going to win, but I didn't think they were going to win this big. Um, Tony touched on the quarterback. Um, basically this team's pretty much an explosive team. They're going to score quick. And what was that first quarter score again, Tony?
45.
45-7.
Yeah, see that this is kind of what the stats kind of look like. They're not huge stats, and by the stat numbers, it's obvious they didn't play the whole game. I mean, you mentioned about the quarterback only had 200 yards, but he attempted 10. 3 of them were touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then your running back, Damian Phillips, he only touched the ball 8 times, and he had 2 touchdowns. And Jacob Brown only touched the ball 14 times with 2 touchdowns. Not many touches for that many touchdowns. You got 7 touchdowns on what, 32 touches. So they could score pretty quick. So I believe both of those touchdowns were probably at the beginning. I didn't even watch this game. I mean, I saw the score, like, it was on, but I like watching. I was trying to go back and forth between games, trying to find a good game in there. But the only thing I got for the Bluff was, the guy that I thought, was a big guy for the whole season, especially in the playoffs, and who I thought was the guy going to be the guy to beat GP, or Nash Vegas. But his game was not there. I mean, he had 32 attempts, only completed 12. Only 136 yards passing, 2 interceptions. He did have a touchdown there, but the 2 interceptions. And the part that I always thought that was great by him, because he's a big quarterback running the ball, he only had 13 yards on 8 attempts. So his numbers weren't nowhere near what it has been. So Katie pretty well did. Not only did they explode for points, man, they pretty well shut down the Bluff. Can't hear you, Gabe. Gabe, you talking? Can't hear you.
Yeah. I'm still messing with this team, trying to figure out. Steve.
Oh,
Hey, well, I mean, like Tony said, the game was over in the first quarter. Giving up 45 points in the first frame is nearly an impossible feat to overcome. And I'm sure that they there after the second half they sat all their guys. For Pateau, I mean, they had 10 guys touch the ball. 10 different running backs carrying the ball. And really just abuse them that way. So they were able to get, their backups in and their backups in, what I'm saying, and get them some great experience in this late in the season. It's only going to benefit them down the line. I mean, that's awesome to be able to do. Have 10 running backs touch the ball, and all of them contribute to the game. You know what I'm saying? So offensively, they scored 6 touchdowns on the ground. Let's see here. Something like that. So, and then everything else was through the air. So just total domination on Katie's part, what I'm saying? I mean, I'm sorry to say that, the Flower Bluff, the ride's over for them. Them being the only really close local team that was left standing. To see them go out like this, it's pretty heartbreaking. But there's a winner and there's a loser. You know what I'm saying, and that's always going to happen. And I don't know if Flower Bluff gives up 45 points in the first quarter if they played again. You know what I'm saying, and like I said, that's the hardest thing to overcome. You know what I'm saying, because as kids, although they're 17, 16, 17, some 18-year-olds in there, and they're still kids. And getting over that mental block, what I'm saying, to finish the game out, it's extremely hard. And then you go down that much, it's even worse. So I'm sorry that the season ended for Flower Bluff this way, but hats off to Katie for not letting up and getting all those guys some extra reps in, and it's only going to serve them well going into the final game.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Because I'm messing with the buttons here. I'm still messing with this new thing, trying to figure it out before we go live next week. Because got everything connected, man. I'm just trying to figure out, make sure I got the right button here, right button there. Okay. So, hats off to Flower Bluff, just down the street from us here, man. I mean, the loss, of course, you don't want to lose that bad, but just the way that they were able to turn their season around, it looked really glim. It was a point where we thought here on the Gridiron that they wouldn't even make the playoffs. They looked, they got beat by a couple of teams that we thought, they should have won. And then the very last game of the regular season, they beat Veterans Memorial. And after that win, boy, they turned their whole season around. They went, and I mean, they went on. But so it's just great. I like to see teams like that, and then Florida Blood being so close to us that they never gave up. The coaches found a way to get these guys to finish out the season the way they did, because nobody really gave them a chance around here. Man, they're going to be one and out if they make the playoffs. And look where they end up. So even though the loss is big, man, I mean, these guys got to feel proud, especially the seniors, of what they accomplished this year and how they just kept fighting and fighting and take out the best team in Vets here in South Texas. And then they get on that playoff run. And they, like you said, Tony, they had to play Greg Report and a team they had lost to earlier, and then play another tough Vets, and they were able to do that. So when you look at this, man, it was still a great season, and congratulations to the coaches out there in Flower Bluff, and to the players, man, because just to be able to get where they got and turn their season around was awesome to see. So congratulations to the Flower Bluff Hornets on a great season. The number 14 game on our JS64 schedule, you had the number 2 College Station going up against Mansfield Summit. This was a good one. College Station takes the win 28-21. Steve, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts on this game?
Hey, so let me defer to Tony. My list end right there at 13. So, but I'll pick up some behind Tony.
Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I didn't know a whole lot about either of these teams. But looking at the box score, it was a pretty evenly matched game. I mean, the score says so itself. But College Station takes the early lead, 14-0 in first quarter, and then uh, Mansfield gets it close at 7-14 at halftime, and then Mansfield keeps scoring. But College Station finds a way to come back after two scoreless quarters, and scores 14 in the fourth to get the win. Looking at the stats, I don't have anything for Mansfield Summit, but College Station, their quarterback was 12 of 17, completed 70% of his passes for 164 yards and a touchdown. And they got a junior running back by the name of Marquise Collins. Had 32 touches. That's like I said about another team that we talked about earlier. 32 touches for 232 yards on the ground, and 3 touchdowns. So, uh, they did it in the air, they did it on the ground. Very well balanced College Station team. And I talked about having and needing to have more than one dimension as a program to really make these deeper runs. And College Station, they put together a well balanced game plan, and they end up getting the win. And they had to come back. They had to come back to get this win. Like I said, they took the early lead and then went down 21-14, and come back and score 14 points in the fourth quarter to take the win. So hats off to College Station for being able to being able to get the win on that. And like I said, well balanced on offense, in the air and on the ground.
Johnny?
Yeah, that same Marquise Collins, he also had a reception for 46 yards on there. So he's probably gonna be a big playmaker. But hey, they're playing against Katy. We'll see how good he's gonna be standing out this game. But on losing in for Mansfield, they had a decent receiver by the name of Kara Powell. He had 114 yards on 6 receptions and a touchdown. So, close games like that, your losing team's going to have a standout too. So, I went with College Station because I'm a big Aggie fan. So,
Mhm.
That's crazy, right? Steve, anything you want to add?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, so we'll go
Hey,
to
wait up, that Marquise Collins from College Station, he's got 2,600 yards on the ground and 37 TDs. That's freaking. I mean, we've talked about a lot of running backs, but that's pretty damn good right there. Uh, and then their quarterback has almost 3,000 yards. So you want to talk about balanced attack? I mean, that's the perfect example of balanced attack. You got a quarterback that's throwing for almost 3,000 and a running back that's almost rushing for 3,000 on the same team. That's gonna be a tough team to beat. And I tell you what, that makes it one of the games that I really want to keep my eyes peeled to, just because looking at these stats, Pateau getting a really big win over Flower Bluff, and then College Station, just that well-rounded offense. It's gonna be a really good game. Can't wait to see how it turns out.
absolutely. And then the next one is game 15 on the GI 64 schedule. And you have number 5, South Oak Cliff Bears going up against the number 4 team in the state of Texas, the Lubbock Cooper Pirates. South Oak Cliff takes the win 44-10. Tony, I'll jump back over to you. Your thoughts on this game?
Um, Let me get him back up here real quick. I couldn't get their stuff to pop up. Johnny, can you go to Johnny real quick while I get this to pop back up?
yeah.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Um, I had picked South Oak on this, and I really don't remember why, but I did. Um, but I'm gonna highlight some of their players that basically like commitments on their team is Kevin Henry Jennings. He's a Missouri State commit. Um, I believe, their quarterback. Went 13 for 18 on passing, 191 yards and 2 touchdowns. They also have a North Texas guy by the name of Quaylen Farmer. He carried the ball 7 times for 36 yards and 2 touchdowns. And here we are again with the special teams with Brandy Reese, an 82-yard kickoff return for a touchdown.
Tony, are you ready or you want to go to Steve?
Yeah, I got it. So they got a kid, Hollywood, last name Hollywood, man, 17 catches for 104 yards. Didn't get into the end zone. But then their big playmaker at the receiver position, Mathis, had 5 receptions for 123 yards and 2 TDs. And man, these guys' rosters must be like NFL rosters. You look at the total tackles, and the list rolls on and on and on. They might have had 70 players on the field, man. They got a big, huge roster. But their standout tackler, let's see here. They had a couple of guys with 11 tackles. They got them down twice. So it's one guy named Jones. He had 9 solo tackles, 11 altogether with tackles. But defensively, these guys are pretty stout, and they got a deep lineup.
Yeah, I'm looking at the roster. I'm looking at Lubbock's roster, and you were talking about how big that guy was from China Springs. They got a guy there in Lubbock by the name of Zachary Barrientos, 6'10", 6'10". He's only 195 pounds, but he's 6'10". I mean, everyone on that line is over 6 foot. You got a John Braden Fenter, 6'2", Gray Hubbard, 6'1", uh, Landon Doris, 6'1", Tanyan Zachary, 6'5", 280 pounds, Hunter Johnson, 6'3", 250 pounds, John Perales, 6'2", Connor Hand, 6'5", 240. I mean, they got some monsters on that team. So I went with Lubbock. I'm trying to look at their schedule and see why I went with Lubbock. I'm not really sure why I went with them. I may have just not looked at their schedule. But again, this is one of those games that we talk about with a lopsided score. It's tough when you get to this point, state semis and you lose like that. But South Oak Cliff finds a way to win and they win big. As the guy said, they got some playmakers on those teams and those guys showed up and Lubbock didn't. I mean, they take let's see. Yeah, I mean, shoot, the game's close in the first quarter and then, South Oak Cliff scores 24 in the second and then they tie in the third with no points and then Oak Cliff scores 13 more in the fourth. So I'm not really sure what happened with Lubbock. I'd like to know if there was injuries or something because, like I said, 7-3 first quarter, and then they scored 24 unanswered points in the second. And that's the way they go into the playoffs. I mean, into halftime. With the what is that 31-3 lead. You know what I mean? I don't know what happened to Lubbock, how they fell apart or what happened. I'd like to dig more into that and see what happened. But it looked like it was gonna be a close game and South Oak Cliff just runs away with the game big time.
Yeah, the number 16 game on the GI 64 schedule had Liberty Hill Panthers going up against the number 10 team Crosby Cougars. Man, Liberty Hill really takes the win 42-14. Liberty Hill's not even ranked in the playoffs, man. And this team, I don't know how they're not ranked because they're very impressive. Steve, I'll go to you first. Liberty Hill, how impressed have you been with these guys, man? Because I mean, can they win the title? We'll find out. But a really great win over the number 10 team. This team's not even ranked.
Yeah, but they do it on the ground. That's their plan of attack. Pitchford had 22 carries for 150 yards with 2 touchdowns, and they had 2 guys with nearly 100 yards. They had Dyer with 8 carries, 89 yards, and then their third one, a guy named Long, had 15 carries for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. So clearly they do it on the ground. Their quarterback Vickers went 1 for 1 for 29 passing yards, but added 5 carries for 11 yards. So clearly they got a couple of backs, or they got a stable of backs actually that do it on the ground for them. But they also had a great defensive game. Guys with 20 plus tackles, 10 tackles, 12 tackles. So, and lots of tackles for loss. They got over 10 tackles for loss there that I'm looking at. So clearly they're a running team that likes to do it on the ground. And schools up there, you know what I'm saying? Once they got a power horse like that, they're just going to pound you into submission. So it looks like that running attack's going to be tough to beat. So we'll see who they got in the next round. Duncanville? No. Lake Travis?
North Shore.
Okay, so we'll see how that goes for them guys, but definitely like to do it on the ground, man.
And
Oh no,
Tony,
I'm sorry, they got South Oak Cliff. They're playing South Oak Cliff.
Mm-hmm.
and Tony, they run the slot T. I mean, that's what they do. And they probably
Yeah.
run it better than Navarro. I mean, this team, Liberty Hill, is probably the best team in the state of Texas at running that slot T. But what's been impressive to me is not only their offense, they do it on the ground, right? Heck of an offensive line they must have down there at Liberty Hill, but the defense too. I mean, they've got studs on both sides because to get to this point and I'd be ranked, you're beating some really Liberty Hill's beating some really good teams. Now they've had, I think last week it was a very close game. I think they won by 3 points or something, but you know,
Hmm.
they've been very impressive. I would definitely like to see Liberty Hill win a state title here in a couple of days. What do you say, Tony?
Yeah, Liberty Hill is one of those I'm gonna say sleeper teams. Um, just because of their ranking. Um, they this to me I'm a little surprised by how they got the win. Like Steve mentioned. They only had one pass. You know what I mean? And we talked about Cal Allen not being able to go far if they can't pass the ball, and the same thing with Port Lavaca, Calhoun not being able to pass the ball. When you get this deep in the playoffs, you have to be able to pass the ball. Well, this team proved that you don't have to. You know what I mean? They went for one pass, and I believe they completed that pass, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they went for one pass and they completed. It was a 29-yard pass, but everything was done on the ground, and so they proved me wrong. I didn't think it could be done. I didn't think you could just, run the whole game and win it. But, we talked about shutting a team out for 2 quarters. It's tough for a team to come back when you don't put any points on the board for 2 quarters, but they shut this team out for 3 quarters. You know what I mean? Crosby finds a way to score 14 in the third quarter, but they were shut out first, second, and fourth quarter. So I mean, when you're shut out the first 2 quarters alone, I mean, that's tough enough. But especially going down 21-0 at halftime. But they turned it into a game when they scored 14 in the third. But Liberty Hill just doesn't stop. They answer back with the touchdown of their own in the third, and then shut them out in the fourth and score 14 of their own. So hats off to Liberty Hill. If I'm not mistaken, they will have South Oak Cliff next week. And the way South Oak Cliff just beat Lubbock, it should turn out to be a really good game. But Liberty Hill is their running attack going to be enough against a tough South Oak Cliff team? We'll have to see. We'll have to see. But yeah, very impressive the way Liberty Hill got to where they're at. Very, very impressive.
Well, they run that slot T, Johnny, right? But I mean, at some point, you've got to run it to. I mean, you gotta have an offensive line. I mean, it's got to be their offensive line. I mean, they've got some skilled players. Obviously, the quarterback. If you're not throwing the pass, all you gotta do is hand it off, right? So I mean, how good of a quarterback do you have to have? I don't know when you're running the slot T, but the backs absolutely. But it's all about the line. That offensive line's got to be dominant because they're dominating. Because I've seen Liberty Hill, they're scoring some points. It's not like they're winning 10-7, 14-7. They're getting up there. That offense is scoring some points. So I'm definitely going to watch this game. I want to see how good. I don't think Liberty Hill's ever been to the state title, or have they? Were they there a couple of years ago, maybe, and lost? I'm not sure. I know they got real close. I don't know if they've ever been there or won a title, but I would definitely like to see them win in a couple of days, man. I like to see that team win a state title. And how impressive would it be to do it on the ground, like you say, when they don't really do a lot of that passing? That just kind of proves you can win a championship with just a run game. And that slot T, and this coach, I don't know if they still run it, but they run that slot T, Johnny. But they add stuff to that slot T that makes it real. Because I've talked to people that try to defend the slot T against Rockport, and they say, yeah, but it's not as easy to run that slot T to defend it. It's a little hard. I think you can add a thing here or there to make it harder. So if you've got the backs and you've got the line running that slot T, it can make it very difficult for defense if that offense is dominating. So your thoughts on this game? A big win for Liberty Hill.
Yeah, very, very, very impressed by Liberty Hill. I didn't think with their running game they were going to get by Crosby. I mean, I easily picked Crosby. I didn't even look at schedules or anything like that. Like, oh, this is Crosby. Liberty Hill. Nah. I didn't even look into anything like that. I easily picked Crosby on this one. Just the last few weeks they've been having some impressive wins, and but Liberty Hill coming out with 433 yards rushing. I mean, wow. In the semifinals, and like we all pointed out, that one pass, attempt, that was it. It took, so they put it well, put it on the ground. You know, you put that ball on the ground, you keep that ball away from that defense. You know, that clock runs. And you don't need big plays to win the battle in the trenches. You know, like I said, all you need is 3 yards, 3-4 yards, 3-4 yards. That's all you need to win a ball game. You know, but you start missing completion attempts. You start missing those pass attempts here and there. You know, you're not moving the ball an inch. You know, 3 downs later, you're on 4th down. You know, but you run 3 yards every play for 3 downs. Go for it on 4th down, like many teams like to do. You got a 1st down, and that clock keeps on running. 3-4 minutes still getting off that clock. 3-4 minutes off that clock every 1st down. You know, I'm pretty sure that's Liberty Hill's mindset the whole time, the whole season.
Yeah, Johnny, and the thing with that, guys, also is that that's a recipe for success, right? Especially if you're scoring. So if Liberty Hill, we don't know how quick they're scoring, right? But if they're taking 4 minutes, 5 minutes off the clock, and you're scoring a touchdown, man, that really helps that Liberty Hill defense. So yeah, very impressive how these guys are doing it. But they've been running that slot T. They might be the best team in Texas that runs that slot T. I mean, I remember we played them in Seguin a couple of years ago. They had some big boys down there. Although I thought Rockford, had a good shot. The first half it was pretty close. Um, they were very impressive in running the slot T. So, um, hopefully Liberty Hill, can win that state title and bring it back home. It'd be nice. Number 17 on the GIC Sports schedule, you have Lake Travis Cavaliers going up against the number 7 team in Texas, the North Shore Mustangs. The Mustangs take the big win over Lake Travis, 49-21. Tony.
Yeah, real quick, back to the last game we just talked about. These two teams played in this game last year, and they went to overtime, and Crosby Crosby beat them 62-61. They beat Liberty Hill.
Mm.
So they played in the state semifinal game last year, and Liberty Hill lost to Crosby in overtime. So what a way for Liberty Hill to come back the following year, and I mean pretty much put a whip into them. Put a whip into them. So hats off to Liberty Hill to be able to do that. This next game, uh, North Shore. I picked North Shore on this one. I wanted to go Lake Travis, but let's see. I'm trying to pull it up right here. Let me see. I'm just trying to get to the reason why I picked North Shore. I want to say it was because of their strength of schedule. Let's see. Yeah, Lake Travis. Not spectacular on the schedule that they had. I mean, they had big wins by far. They had big wins. Um, yeah. So that's why I went with the North Shore, just because of the teams that they had to play against to get here. Um, they beat Katy Tompkins, which is a team that we talked about earlier. It was one of our state picks, and they beat them 26-20. And then Anacosita, I talked about how they beat them uh, only by 10 points in the regular season. They come back and beat them by over 20 points in the playoffs. So North Shore is very dominating right now. They're rolling. They only got one loss to who is it to Westfield, Houston Westfield. Not sure who they are. We haven't talked about Houston Westfield. Is that one of the private schools maybe? I would think that a team that knocked out that beat a North Shore team would be in the playoffs still if they were in the regular
UIL, no,
6A.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine they're probably a private school to have beaten North Shore early on. I'm not really sure. Um, but yeah, so North Shore, let me see. Let me try to get some stats on this one. Oh, here we go. Yeah, North Shore pretty much dominated the whole game. They take the early lead 14-7 in the first quarter. And then they scored 21 more points in the second quarter, and Lake Travis is just inching away, scoring a touchdown a quarter, and then they get shut out in the third. But yeah, North Shore had this game from the get go. Didn't and Lake Travis never had a chance. So hats off to North Shore for their impressive win. Um, but we'll see. We'll see how they do next week. I believe they got is it Liberty Hill or South? I think it's Liberty Hill or Duncanville.
Duncanville.
Either way, Duncanville. They
Yeah,
got Duncanville.
yeah.
Yeah, they'll have their hands full next week with Duncanville for sure. But North Shore has had to me have has had a tougher schedule. Is why I went with them.
Steve.
So I don't know if I'm off the game here. So Lake Travis versus Brennan, isn't that right? Who they play?
Yeah, Brennan, San Antonio Brennan.
Okay, okay. So we're talking about Lake Travis. So this is kind of funny because it's polar opposite of the game that we just talked about with Liberty Hill. So these guys are strictly a passing team. Edmondson went 25 for 33 for 322 yards. His average pass play was for nearly 13 yards. A pass play completed over 75% of his throws. So they do it in the air, and they do it in the air big. Their largest contributor, he had the most touches. Johnson had 24 touches, but only gained 18 yards. Their biggest producer was Hamilton, had 6 carries for 40 yards. So they're clearly a passing team and do it very effectively and spread it out a ton. They got guys with leading the game. Norris had 9 receptions for 82 yards. And the next guy behind him, Burton, had 5 receptions for 79 yards. So they're clearly a passing team, and they do it very effectively. So Lake Travis went on to win this game. So Lake Travis is going to have a tough opponent in Duncanville next week. So we'll see how that goes. But looks like a great matchup. Looks like it's going to be a great game between Duncanville and Lake Travis.
Johnny.
I got North Shore winning that
Yeah,
game.
it's
Do I have it wrong?
no, it's North Shore.
North Shore
Really?
won the game.
I think Steve was looking at the wrong. I was trying to follow.
Lake Travis played Brennan last week. That's what I thought you were talking about, Steve. Who they played last week? They
Oh,
played.
you're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize.
No, but you're right on all the points that you made. Lake Travis is a passing team. I mentioned this last week. That's the home of Baker Mayfield, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's what you
Baker
told
Mayfield.
us.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield came from Lake Travis, and someone else, I can't remember who it was, but they produce quarterbacks over there at Lake Travis, so they've
I
always been
think
a
Drew Brees.
predominantly.
Didn't Drew Brees come from there? Drew
I'm
Brees?
not
Breeze
I'm
came
not
from
sh-
Austin Westlake. I think that guy
Westlake.
Gilbert, the came from Lake Travis. He was a
Yeah,
quarterback
yeah,
for Dallas.
yeah,
He
yeah,
played for the Longhorns. He came out of Lake Travis. Drew Brees came out of Westlake.
yeah. He was Austin Westlake. Yeah, but no, they've always been a passing team down there. I'm not really sure what North Shore does specifically, but Lake Travis has always been predominantly both the Austin, Westlake, and Lake Travis. They throw the ball a lot. So
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Johnny.
Speaking of producing quarterbacks, this is what North Shore is trying to do: is producing their freshman quarterback, getting into the state championship game. Freshman quarterback. He was 8 for 11 passing, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns. But most impressively, he had 13 carries for 203 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. So yeah, they're. I think North Shore's going to be back again next year. Their receiver was junior David Amador, 4 receptions for 110 yards, 2 touchdowns. They got I guess this was their linebacker, Jaden Anderson for North Shore, having a 36-yard pick six for a touchdown. But Lake Travis, they have a 4-star Ohio State commit, Caleb Burton. He had basically just 4 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown. But what I'm really impressed again was that a freshman quarterback has gotten them to the state championship game.
Very impressive. It looks like North Shore will be back next year. Again, these big schools, guys, when you get into playoffs, deep in the playoffs, man, it's great to talk about these big schools because they produce great athletes, Lake Travis, Austin Westlake, Duncanville, South Lake Carroll. All these guys, you see their quarterbacks or running backs at that next level, right? Pretty much. So it's great when we get in the playoffs, third round plus, and get to talk about these big old schools. So next, number 18 on the GI 64 schedule, you'll have number 4 Duncanville Panthers. They played at the number 3 team, South Lake Carroll. Duncanville gets the huge win over South Lake Carroll, 35-9. Johnny?
Ooh, I had South Lake Carroll winning the state on this one.
Yeah.
Ooh, shut me out on this one. Now, some of the stuff I got off of this game. A Toledo commitment guy by the name Malachi Maddox. He had 143 yards rushing on 24 attempts. Also had 3 receptions for 17 yards and a touchdown. 5-star defensive lineman Amar Abor. He had a 16-yard fumble return for a touchdown. Of course, when you have 2 big old teams like that playing against each other, you're going to have a few commits from both sides. South Lake Carroll has a South Carolina commit named Landon Sampson. He had 3 receptions for 109 yards. Also from South Lake Carroll, R.J. Maryland from a Boston College commit. He had 3 receptions for 61 yards. But South Lake Carroll, we all knew about that quarterback that went to Ohio State. Now he's big news coming back to Texas.
Yeah, you seen that today?
Yeah.
He's going back to the transfer portal. Said he wasn't getting no playing time.
So you had junior quarterback Caden Anderson, who picked up his spot this year. With this game, he hit the 3,000-yard passing mark, only as a junior. Very impressive with 34 touchdowns. And he had 3 out of 313 attempts. He only had 6 interceptions.
Right.
That to me is a very impressive, for the quarterback coming back again next year.
Yeah. Very impressive. Steve?
Yeah, I don't have nothing much on this one other than for South Lake Carroll, some of their stats. And what really stood out that the quarterback Anderson, right, he went 15 for 25 for 212, but had a negative 49 yards rushing. I think he was going the wrong way, man. That's pretty strange to have that. I mean, that's a scrambling quarterback trying to make something happen, I'm sure, but negative 49 points. I'm sure that had a lot to do with their production. Sampson was their biggest target. He had 3 receptions for 109 yards, but no touchdowns. So no touchdowns receiving at all. So their rushing touchdown, their one lone rushing touchdown came on the ground. Layman.
Wow. Tony?
Yeah. I went with South Lake Carroll. I mean, really, it was hard. It was hard to pick the winner of this game. Both these teams are really good and have been for the last 3 or 4 years. Longer than that, but I'm just talking about the guys that are still playing right now. Last 3 or 4 years because they got some big names on both sides of the ball. Uh, it was tough. Duncanville's only loss this season is to the number 1 team in the nation, Mater Dei from Santa Ana, California. That's their only loss, and they almost got shut out. It was a 45-3 game. Other than that, they had some impressive wins, but man, so did South Lake Carroll. We talked about one of their games early on in the season. When they faced Highland Park, we didn't know how they were going to do with the junior quarterback. That's one of the things we talked about earlier in the season. How far could this junior quarterback take them? Well, it took them all the way to the state semis. You know what I mean? But they've had a lot of impressive wins, scored a ton of points with that quarterback, and their defense was very stingy on defense. So for this game, it was really tough for me to pick, but I went with South Lake Carroll, and South Lake Carroll was ranked higher in the nation up until they played this game. Dropped them all the way down to 25, and Duncanville moves all the way to number 8. But South Lake Carroll was number 6 before this game. So hats off to Duncanville for coming in and really, like we said about the Cuero China Springs game, it's not really a shutout, but it's a shutout. You know what I mean? And I know Duncanville had a big time defense, but I knew South Lake Carroll had a big time offense, and it was just going to be a battle of which one showed up more, and Duncanville's defense proved to be too much for South Lake Carroll last Friday or Saturday. They played Saturday last Saturday, so we'll see. Duncanville, uh, Duncanville will have their hands full against North Shore next week, so we'll see what happens there.
Yep, absolutely. And then we go to game number 19 on the GI 64 schedule. You have the number one team in the state of Texas, the Austin Westlake Chaparrals, going up against the number two team in the state of Texas, the Katy Tigers. Both of these programs have won state. Both of these programs, two great programs in the state of Texas. But in this game, man, Austin Westlake, I mean, the Katy Tigers really, and we're not accustomed to Katy Tigers, at least I'm not, to seeing them get whipped by anybody. And Austin Westlake pretty much beat them down in this game, 45-14. Listen, Tony, I'm gonna go back to you first, man. Austin Westlake is ranked number two in the nation, right? I
Hmm.
mean, do we know who the number one team is in the nation?
Yeah, Mater Die, Mater Day. That's the team that Duncanville lost. The only team Duncanville lost to.
Are they out of
They're from
California?
Santa Ana, California.
It's a select football team.
Yeah, select
It's a
private
private. It's a
school.
private school. It's a private school select. It's like
Yeah,
making London uh, a select football team.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All right, so we're still better than. All right, we'll just say it like that, right?
You
So
play. It's a high school compared to the state of California.
yeah, absolutely. The best the
Yeah.
state of California is right, absolutely. So, Tony, I'll go to you first. Listen, man, Austin Westlake, man. I mean, these guys have been impressive. We've been talking about the last couple of weeks. These guys are probably going to win state if they don't fall apart, right? And it looks like they're well on their way. Talk about this game. Katie's great program. They're always doing some great things down there, but really no competition this year. This Katie team against a really good Austin Westlake team.
Yeah, I didn't put Katie having a chance. Um, I picked Austin Westlake without even thinking about it. I didn't think Katie had a chance. Now, I will say that Katie uh dominated uh everybody else that they played. I mean, they gave up very few points the whole season and scored a ton. So even having said that, I didn't think that there was any way they had a chance to beat Austin Westlake. I didn't think that they had a chance. But I will say that, like the credentials that you just talked about, Katie, I mean, they've been here before, they won state before, but they had no chance in this game to beat Austin Westlake at all, and that score shows it right there. Austin Westlake, they really, really blow the game away in the first three quarters, scoring 14 in the first, 17 in the second, and 14 in the third. They don't score anything in the fourth. I'm guessing because they probably pulled everyone out. Um, but man, that quarterback had 310 yards passing and completed 74% of his passes, and he threw for 5 touchdowns. It's a kid by the name of Klubnik. Uh, yeah, and yeah, I didn't think that Katie was gonna be able to contend against a big quarterback like that, and that quarterback has had a phenomenal season thus far, and going into this game, and proved to be too much for Katie to handle. But Katie's been here before. I don't think that they're going home with their heads down. I know they probably wanted to win, but they probably knew that Austin Westlake was the better team. Of course, if you're a player, you don't think that, but on paper, Austin Westlake was a better team, and they proved to be Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely, Johnny. I mean, your thoughts. I mean, who can beat Austin Westlake in the state of Texas, right? I mean, that this team is hands down just a great
I-
team,
I'd
and it
like to
shows.
see I'd like to see Austin Westlake and Duncanville play. I'd like to see that. They're not gonna, but I'd like to see that game.
Yeah, it'd be great. Johnny, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, like Tony said, that quarterback from Austin Westlake, he's been the standout all season. He is a national 5-star player. He's committed to Clemson. Uh, the running back, Austin Westlake's running back, he's a sophomore. Jake Kaser, he had 17 carries for 141 yards rushing and a touchdown. Um, Junior Jaden Greathouse, he's a 4-star national athlete. He had 6 receptions for 83 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the Katy side, like again, I mentioned earlier about big schools like this are going to have commitments on both sides. We got an Oklahoma Sooner guy by the name of Nicholas Anderson. He had 5 receptions for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. A lot of college boys in the game like this. But yeah, Katie's, Katie's is good. Katie's is always big. Big area. I don't know how many high schools they have now. What is it? I know all their high schools
3?
probably the big. Katie.
No,
I know
Katie has a bunch.
more
They
than
got
3.
Tompkins, the Katy Tigers, Peyto, shoot, probably other smaller Katy schools that we don't even know of. Because
But
that
yeah,
Peyto,
also,
that Peyto is a 5A Division 2,
I think they're
and
only like a
Katy
two
Tig,
year. I think Patel's only been like around over 2 years.
yeah. So
But yeah, Austin Westlake, dude, I've known this team forever, and I know Katie was been around too for a little while, playing for that state title. Back in the day when there was only one state championship per division. So Austin Westlake's been there too. So I went with the Chaparrals because I've seen them play, and I like Austin Westlake. It's just I have a favorite. If I had a favorite in the state, it would be Austin Westlake.
Yeah, these guys are dominant. And here's the thing, man. How does that? How do you if you're the UT? How do you let that quarterback get out of Texas, man? Like he's like right in your
right.
backyard, right? Like he's right there in your backyard. I mean, it's like you're right. He's right there. You can go watch him play every Friday, right? And then the same thing with Drew Brees. Drew Brees went out of Westlake and goes to Purdue, right? And you're like, how does he get out of Texas? How does he get out of UT, man? He's right there in your backyard, man. I mean, it's like, and I think that's one of the things that we see. That's one thing that we take a look at. When you bring in Jimbo Fisher for A&M, and now Sark, we'll see what he does. In the next couple of years at Texas, but you bring these big coaches because these high school, they're producing athletes here in Texas every year. I mean, we talk about Duncanville and Lake Travis and all these schools that we're talking about. There's athletes, great athletes coming out. We're still looking at these freshmen that we're talking about. That are real dominant as freshmen. That you still got 3 more years. It's just crazy. We've got to try to find a way to keep these guys here in the state of Texas. They're from Texas. Let's keep them here and not let them go. Listen, I'll just throw this out there real quick. Dabo Sweeney, man, I just heard some rumors that the Raiders are chasing after him. So I don't know, man. For this guy, Clemson, I mean, maybe they lost their defensive coordinator. He's now gone. So I don't know. You might want to change your mind. If Dabo Sweeney leaves Clemson, we'll see what happens. It's just trade rumors now, right? But his name has been circling there with the Raider job. So we'll see what happens. Harbaugh's name's out there as well. We'll see. But I like to keep the Texas boys in Texas. Anywhere you got Texas A&M, you got Texas, you got Baylor. I mean, it'd be nice to keep these boys here in Texas, but we've got to be able to start winning some titles, man. We got to start doing Nick Saban here in Texas for these guys that want to stay. Otherwise, they're going to be leaving. So we'll see what happens. But definitely, we have some great athletes in high school in the state of Texas. And then the last game on the GI 64 schedule, we have Tomball Cougars going up against the number 9 team in the state, Geyer Wildcats. Man, Geyer takes a huge win 59-14. Johnny, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts on the game?
Oh yeah, this was a. I thought this game was going to be a little closer than this. Um, yeah, 59-14 is not a good game for a semifinal game. Um, we're talking about these guys going out of state and this and that. Um, I don't know if this counts as out of state or whatever, but we just had the Army Navy game just played here recently, and this is what Army's going out for these guys over here. Uh, with BJ Phillips, he had 7 rushes for 28 yards and a touchdown. He's going to the Army. Um, also, that was for Geyer, and for Tomball, we have Kale Helms going to the Army. He was the quarterback. 7 for 16 on passing, just 40 yards, 15 carries for 63 yards and a touchdown. Um, I I don't know if they go over to play for football for Army or they're just going to go out. But I never heard anybody from this area going to play football for any of these military schools out there. You know, I always thought they were kind of like walk-ons, pretty much. But you know, it's pretty interesting after watching this Army Navy game this past weekend. Uh, but you also had Jace Wilson. He's staying in Texas at UTSA. Had 3 catches for 39 yards. Then you have some juniors that are 4-star athletes out there. Jackson Arnold, he was 7 for 9 on passing, 137 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He also has 72 yards on the ground for Denton. Another Denton 4-star national athlete, a junior safety, Peyton Brown. He had a 77-yard punt return for a touchdown. A
Yeah,
lot of action going on in this game.
yeah, very impressive, guys. Tony, your thoughts?
Well, what I will say is hats off to both of these teams. You know, Den Geyer being a number 2 seed, and Tomball being a number 4 seed, making it this far in the playoffs, and all the way to the semis. Of course, Den Geyer, you know, they're in a little bit tougher area up there in Dallas area, than Tomball is, and you know, Tomball didn't have a chance in this game. But you know, Denton, if you ever go over there, you know that you know they got the Louisville, they got Den Ryan, Den Geyer. I mean, those guys are always big. They're always physical. They always got 4 and 5 star recruits. Uh, I'm not really familiar with Tomball as far as their recruiting and stuff like that, but I know that Denton area is always real popular for 4 and 5 star recruits, whether it's from Geyer, Louisville, or Denton Ryan. So you know, I didn't give Tomball a chance to win this game. I didn't think it'd be a blowout just because I don't think when you get this deep in the playoffs, scores should be this lopsided. But it is. That's the way it happened, and that's the way it is. You know, they will have their hands full. You know, Austin Westlake gets a big win over Katy, and Geyer gets a big win over Tomball. So, you know, both teams prove that they can score some points. So it should make up for a pretty good 6-8 championship. So we shall see what happens later on this week.
Yeah, and I think the championship game is played either on Friday or Saturday. The bigger school. I think they started with the
Yeah,
6-8
small.
usually on
Saturday.
Saturdays. Yeah,
Yeah,
usually Saturdays.
Sorry,
so that
that's going to be the. Actually, no, because that's Division 2
Yeah, it'll be the South. It'll be Duncanville and North Shore.
for the
yeah,
It'll
Saturday.
be the big game.
yeah, and guys, and I think that's the best part of what we do here, right? As the Gridiron tries to expand is, it's all year. I don't want to shut it down when after next week because there's still a lot to talk about. In terms of the football games aren't being played, but we want to bring in some of the coaches that were on the Gridiron this year from our area, and hopefully send them an invite see if they want to come on and just kind of put some closure to the season. Do the same thing with the coaches here in our town, and then the other part of it is stay up, get an early start into the summer. We can talk to 7-on-7, but these championship teams and start talking about and trying to cover a little bit more. I know we get to the regular season, we kind of cover the coastal Bend area, and we'll always do that. But get up there to some of these other teams and start talking about them earlier, and where are these guys going? Keep an eye on these guys. We can follow them through Twitter now, and there's just information out there that we can follow and talk about and give our opinions and let the community know what's going on with these guys. Some great talent down here. We talked about just in these last couple of weeks of where these guys are going, and then kind of seeing what some of these guys, the freshmen, are going to be sophomore next year, some of the juniors are going to be seniors, and kind of talk about and give our predictions. I like to be able to do predictions this year early on and see where some of these championship teams can they repeat again, or what are their chances. So we can, even though football isn't going to be played all year, we can definitely come on and still talk football all year with a lot of stuff to talk about and getting into next season. The season rolls around kind of quick, so hopefully we can continue to do that. My plans are to keep the gridiron going and getting more talks with more schools up in the other areas, in the San Antonio, Dallas, all these Austin, Westlake, Lake Travis. See what we think, who they got coming back, and making predictions on where we think they'll end up in their district and in their region. Be a lot of fun. We can't do all the actual schools, but some of these bigger schools, 6A, 5A, the division 1 and 2, and see where they'll end up. So it's gonna be a lot of fun, and we can continue to keep that rolling. That would be great. But that ends it for our breakdown on the fifth round. The next round, of course, is the championship game, and I believe I don't have the whole schedule, but be looking out on the Gridiron 64 Facebook and Twitter page. We'll put up the championship games and who's going to play on what day, if the schedule's out already. I'll look at that in the morning, and the times and stuff. I know I'll be looking at it. Yeah, I'm gonna try to, even if I'm at work, look at it. I do that every year, no matter if I'm working. I've been lucky enough to be able to get on my phone and see it, even if I'm at work. But it's better if I'm at the house because I get to see it. I ain't got to worry about looking at it and doing something than looking at it. But the games are scheduled for in a few days. I think they start off with 2A on Wednesday, if I'm correct. So we're going to put that out there. And then, of course, we'll be back on Monday to break down the championship games here on the Gridiron 64. We're not going to be able to do a preview. I knew that this was going to take us a while. Tomorrow, we're scheduled to be live streaming a game. I'm not sure which game we're going to do just yet. And then, of course, Wednesday, we've got the Pirates code that we come in, and then the games will start. So we didn't have it till Friday. So if you guys want to send your predictions to me by tomorrow, at least by Wednesday morning, that way I can get them in and put them on our Facebook and Twitter page, Gridiron, so they'll know who you guys predicted. And then, of course, on Monday, we'll take that schedule and we'll break it down, guys. So thank you very much. But before we go, I know it's getting a little late. Any games that you guys do want to talk about in the championship game? Now we know who's going to be playing. I'll go to you first, Tony. Any team? Is there a team out there, one or two teams that you just kind of want to give a little preview? I know we're not going to do them all, but if there's some of these championship teams that now that we have an opportunity that you want to talk about or give your opinion on?
Yeah, just real quick in the 2A Division One, we talked about Shiner early on. One of the Brooks brothers graduating after this year, so I look forward to Shiner. I look forward to Shiner uh doing well, but I look forward to the Brooks brothers to really have big games and taking state. I think Shiner's gonna. I think the Brooks brothers, and I hate to say just two people because I know there's 11 guys on the field and 30, 40 guys on the sideline, but I just look to those two guys to really be too much for Hawley to overcome. And then LBJ, we've been talking about LBJ all year about how good they are and stuff like that. But I'll tell you what, the Yellow Jackets, Stephenville Yellow Jackets, they're really playing impressive football right now. They really are. Uh, and I'm really, I'm on Stephenville's side. I think Stephenville's gonna beat Austin LBJ. I really do think that Stephenville has done enough with the wins that they've had in this postseason to beat LBJ, and then our division 4A Division 2, China Springs and Gilmer. Like I said, Gilmer's probably breathing easy now that they don't have to play Carthage in the state championship game. But hats off to them for making it there again, back to back. But I do believe that they will be runner up again. I think China Springs has proved to me enough that they are going to win state. And then Let's see, was it Pateau, College Station in Pateau? Even though Pateau had a bigger win versus Flower Bluff, I still think College Station's gonna win that game. Like I said, College Station has had some more impressive wins to me. Um, Liberty Hill versus South Oak Cliff. I think Liberty Hill got that one. North Shore and Duncanville. Even though North Shore has a bigger win, well, maybe not points wise, but they scored more points. I still think Duncanville's the more dominant team. And as far as what I would like to see, because I don't think that the 6A Division Two is gonna be that big of a game. I think Austin Westlake hands down is gonna beat Denton. Uh, but I wish it was like the old days, and I wish I could see Duncanville and Austin Westlake play because I think that would be the best game to watch, the best matchup game to watch in that 6A division. But that's all I got, and that's what I look to see. All the other ones, I think the people who are supposed to win are going to win. Like the Franklins and well, that's it really. I think Franklin's the only one that I could say is probably going to win for sure. Everyone else, it could go either way. Austin Westlake, of course, is going to win for sure as well.
Yeah. Johnny?
Yeah, I think Franklin will probably win that one, but it is against number one, number two, best game you can have in the state. They ain't no semifinal preseason. It's number one, number two in the state finals. So hopefully that's a good game. That's going to be something. But as you were saying about the Shiner game, it's like uh, close to home. I think seeing them play against Referral, seeing those boys play, those brothers, I I haven't seen no spectacular backs out there in the state. They might have some 3,000 yards games out there. I mean season, but just watching Dalton just run the ball, just it's sweet. I like watching that boy run the ball. Sadly, I got to watch it on TV because in live it looked amazing how that guy can run. Once he's in the open, because once he's in the open, it's hard to tackle that boy. You've got it. He just got that little slide kind of step move. I call it the Evan Smith slide step move. But Evan Smith did it in the backfield while this boy's doing it in the open field. Um, the other game was what was it? Oh, I guess our division, the 4A Division Two, Gilmer and what do you call it, China
Uh,
Springs. I really hope that's a good game. I think China Springs probably going to take it easy. I mean, I think they will win this game easy, but I'm hoping Gilmer gives them a good game. Again, anything can happen any given day, but I think all the favorites going towards um, China Springs just because how they got there, who they played to get here. So, but Gilmer, they like I said, they're a different part of the state, and I think this will be a good game. This is a good game to watch.
It will be. It'll be a good. There'll be all these games. I think are going to be good. They're good every year, and this year will be no different. And of course, like I said, I think it starts on Wednesday. Look at our Facebook and Twitter page on the Gridiron 64, Facebook and Twitter page, and you're going to be able to see. We're going to have a rundown of the schedule, but I believe it starts on Wednesday. It goes all the way to Saturday. We'll give you the schedule, and then of course the guys are going to send me their picks, and I'll put their names and who they picked for these state games, and then of course, the Gridiron 64 will be back on Monday, and about 6:45, 7, and we will break down those games. And like I said, Gridiron will continue. We'll have topics to talk about. We'll have coaches that we're going to try to bring in to close out the season once the championship game. We've done some of these coaches that came on the Gridiron. We're going to send an invitation back to them. Hopefully, they'll come in and talk about their programs and then of course what the expectation is and who they got coming back for next year. Something that we want to do here on the Gridiron. And then, like I said, we want to talk about some of these players and from Texas and where they're going to be going, where they're going to be playing at college at the next level, and hopefully, we might be able to get a couple of them into the Gridiron to talk a little bit, especially those in the coastal Bend area. We'll see how it works, but the Gridiron will continue to go, will continue to stay on. and talk about many things. And of course, when the season becomes, we'll cover the 7-on-7, getting into the 2022 regular season. So it's going to be a lot of fun for the Gridiron. And then, of course, we're still looking to expand our team. I'll be working on that for next year, hopefully bringing in a couple of more guys from different areas to come on in for next year to kind of give us perspective. Maybe somebody from the Corpus Christi area, somebody from the Portland Sinton area, Mathis area, somebody from that area, somebody from maybe the smaller schools, or maybe even down from the valley. Or I know some people down from the valley. I know some people in the San Antonio area that can come on. I mean, with Zoom, you can do anything, right? And hopefully, we can expand and get some more input from these other guys in the areas and really let us know what's going on. So we're hoping to do that. Hopefully by next year we'll be a little bit more established in this year. But this was a great year for us as far as covering. It was our first time really doing it. I think it went really well. We'll continue to grow. So guys, thank you very much, man. Have a great night. And I'll see you guys on Monday. Don't forget to send me your picks so I can get it in by at least no later than Wednesday morning. And I will see you guys back on Wednesday at 6:45. I think we're gonna start at 7. I've got nobody planned this week. I thought that I would bring somebody in, but I don't. I kind of want to focus a little bit more on the Pirates Cove on our basketball. The games that they played. I want to kind of get into the freshmen and JV and see what they're doing early on in the season. Kind of get into the middle school. So for this week, I kind of I don't have any guests scheduled, so we can kind of concentrate, talk a little bit on that, and then next week on the Pirates Cove, we'll resume back with interviews with our boys and girls basketball, and then definitely our soccer program coming up. But don't forget, softball's just around the corner, baseball just around the corner, powerlifting. So we're going to be busy. But for this Wednesday, when I see you guys, it'll be mainly just kind of focusing on the boys and girls basketball, our middle school, seeing what we're doing at that level, and then next week we'll resume back to the interview. So, guys, if you've got nothing else, Johnny, Tony, anything you want to add before we call it a night? Guys,
No.
thank you for your time. I appreciate it. The video will be uploaded sometime tomorrow afternoon. I got to figure out, since it's a new thing that we're doing here, got to kind of figure out how we do this, how I upload on the laptop. But it should be up for viewing tomorrow afternoon. Have a great night, guys, and I'll see you on Wednesday.
All right. Good night, fellas.
Later.